and welcome to Great British Ghosts. In this new series, I'm going to be travelling around the country to discover some of the most haunted places in Britain. Today, I've come to East Sussex. Later on, I'll be visiting a 13th century priory. But first, I'm in Rye, which is an amazing historical town. And despite its romantic charm, it has a history of highwaymen and ruthless smugglers, many of whom stayed here at the Mermaid Inn. The Mermaid Inn is one of the oldest and reputedly most haunted inns in Britain. It sits in the heart of the old town of Rye, down on the Sussex coast, and literally oozes history. The town itself is still a busy fishing port, and the inn was said to be used as a base by a notorious band of smugglers, and is rumoured to be haunted by no less than 5 different ghosts. Its owner for the past 20 years is Judith Blincoe, who agreed to show me around.
We have many, many guests who stay purely hoping to see ghosts. And I always think it's the people who are coming not to expect ghosts that seem to see them, opposed to those just sitting in wait. And this is one of our most interesting rooms, where there'd been a lot of paranormal activity. Some lights on.
So what paranormal events have happened in this room?
We had a séance last year. There were 5 members of staff, all pretty sceptical, and we all literally sat around a round table and we looked over here, and the gentleman that was holding the séance said to us all, "My face will now change as I become the spirit of one of the long dead of this room." And all of us saw his face change. It sort of like grew on one side, and literally we all stood there. It was quite scary. And at one point in this corner, he said he was speaking to an actual spirit, and he told each one of us in turn to come over, and we put our arm through, and our arms actually disappeared into where his body in theory would be. And again, we all saw the same thing. I saw my arm disappear, they saw my arm disappear, and it was just really, really bizarre. I'm sure that the Mermaid Inn is haunted, having been here now for 28 years. And it's the same rooms that people see things in year after year after year. This area of the room's really interesting.
Was this a secret passageway?
Yes. It's actually marked as a fire exit, but all the fire exits now are the old secret passages.
And what would this have been used for?
This goes down to the back of the bar, and that is actually one of our rooms, room 16, which has got most of the ghostly stories. We can't actually go there in the moment, I'm afraid, because there's someone staying.
So what are the stories?
There are several, but the most common one that keeps cropping up is at the turn of the century, when we first bought the hotel. We got the story from the library that a couple were asleep in the bed, lady had woken up, seen 2 people fighting, woke her husband up, so they both saw the same story. And they had a sword fight. One gentleman killed the other, and the body disappeared through the wall, which would have come through here and down. Also, last year, we had a gentleman who left his camera running on slow all night, and at 2:15, you actually see at this corner of the room, it goes very dark, and you see a strange light dart straight down to the floor, and you could hear metal on metal. And the same week, someone took 3 photos on their digital camera, and the middle one shows a figure. And again, on the digital camera, it shows the time, and that was 2:15 as well, in the same room. With the sword fight in room 16, the body supposedly went through the secret passage, which in turn has a little set of stairs which goes down to the back of the bar. And in the good old days, the bar was actually on that particular corner. And one day we actually had a barman came to work, and all the bottles in front of him fell off the shelf. And the last thing we saw of him was his bow tie left on the side, and he left. We never saw him again.
There's so much history at the Mermaid Inn that it's little wonder the building is so haunted, with nearly every bedroom having its own ghost story. So what happened in this one?
This room was a couple fast asleep in the bed here, and they saw a figure walk through this wall, across the room and through that one. And it was really bizarre because when I came on duty at 8 in the morning, they're fast asleep on the couch downstairs and they refused to come back up and get their clothes. So we had to bring all their stuff from the room downstairs so that they could go and get changed.
So they were terrified?
Yep, wouldn't come back up at all.
So Judith, what's it like to work in a place that is renowned for having so many ghosts?
I was a little bit spooked, obviously, to begin with, but I've never had what I would class as a really bad feeling. I can quite happily turn up in the morning or work late at night and just not have that spooky feel. The hairs don't stand up on the back of my neck or anything like that, really. I'm quite pleased that the Mermaid Inn is haunted. It adds a little bit more character to the building. People so want to know about ghosts, and if this helps and it helps staying here and people do enjoy staying here, why not?
Peter Kostick is Rye's Heritage Officer and knows all too well how the town's history is connected to the ghostly goings-on at the Mermaid Inn.
I think the Mermaid Inn is so haunted because it's got so much history. It was rebuilt in 1420. It was previously burnt down. It's had so many souls that have passed through this particular building and structure. It's a very old building and we can't get away from it. It is going to have squeaks and bumps and things like that naturally happen. The walls aren't that thick, and the floorboards are very squeaky, so you will hear things that have got nothing to do with the paranormal, but that's part of its charm, I think.
The Mermaid Inn has had a checkered history, and in the 17th century was home to the notorious Hawkhurst smugglers gang.
They were very ruthless, to the point that Mermaid Street in their day was virtually a no-go area. You would not want to walk down Mermaid Street at night. You ran the gauntlet, and there was no law and order, so they could do what they liked, and they would murder if they needed to.
So Peter, how do you think all this smuggling history has manifested itself in the haunting of the Mermaid Inn?
One of the stories that always tend to crop up is the servant girl who was in the Mermaid Inn and was murdered by members of the Hawkhurst gang because they felt she had betrayed them. And her boyfriend was a member of the Hawkhurst gang, but actually she hadn't. And that particular apparition does actually show itself to some of the guests in some of the rooms that they've seen when they've actually stayed here.
Well, the Mermaid Inn is certainly full of fascinating history and ghosts, and a lot of that is connected to smuggling. Now, if those smugglers were caught, then they were carted off to the town jail, which apparently is quite an eerie place to visit after dark. In fact, it's said that the local jail is the most haunted place in all of Rye. So naturally, it sits right next door to the town's graveyard. I'd arranged to meet the man with the keys, local historian Ted Empson. Hi, Ted.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to our Rogers Tower.
So this was the town jail, was it?
It was over 400 years a town jail, yeah. It was never built as a jail, but that's what it was used for the most of the time.
It's like a pretty horrible place to be holed up for a night or two.
It's lovely in there. Come in and have a look. Some sorts of things.
Gee, that is a big door.
Yep.
You can go first.
The tower was built in 1249. It was turned into a prison in the 1400s. It was a prison for 400 odd years.
And what sort of people would have been prisoners here?
Well, common criminals, thieves, drunks who were, sobering up drunks, pressmen who jumped ship. They would have been put in here until the ship came in. Smugglers, of course, because there's a lot of smuggling in the area. This is one of the 6 rooms that was used as a cell.
And how many people would they chuck in here?
Anything up to 6 at a time when it was busy.
So standing room only?
Absolutely, yes. Of course, you could probably have sat against one of the walls and got a bit of sleep.
Ted, the Tower Jail has had hundreds of ghost sightings down through the centuries, right up to the present day.
What other hauntings have happened here?
We've had a number of hauntings. People have seen and heard children in the building, and we had one particular lady who was up here one night and she felt as though there was a woman, a wise woman here, who was cooking up potions. We've also had people feeling very nasty things downstairs in one of the cell rooms.
I think there's so many ghosts here because of, if we go back into history, is that there's been so much trauma here. There's so many troubled souls here. And that's what I think, that's when we call ghosts or spirits, whatever we want to put them into, is that it's the trauma that they've suffered, it's the death, the suicide, that's what's left their residue here. It's residue energy.
John, have you had any paranormal experiences yourself?
I have. One particular one which will stand out for me for quite a long time was down in the garden. The team I was with had gone into the women's tower to see what was in there, and I stood outside, and I just got the feeling there was something really sort of not very pleasant going on at this end of the garden, underneath here. And I looked round, and I can't say I saw anything, but it was just a feeling that it was very broody. You know, there was something going on. So I went upstairs to talk to the team, and they came down, and the chap who was the medium came rushing up here, and he stood there for a number of moments, and he started saying that there was something here. It was big and black, and it was coming up the side of the tower.
Well, at least it's light out here.
Oh, it's much better out here in the evening.
Which way?
It's just down here. Come down these steps.
So, Ted, does the garden always have an eerie feel to it?
Oh, no. During the daytime, it's a very pleasant place to be. It just takes on this different persona at night. Here we go, down here, behind the steps.
When you had that paranormal experience down here, what do you think it was?
I don't know personally what it was. It was just something down the end of the garden there which was most unpleasant. Whatever was down there was a accumulation of the nasties of the tower, of the area, in one sort of conscious thing. No, I don't know. I haven't got the words to describe it.
But that's why it's called the unexplained.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it was very unexplained.
Do you mind if we go now?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Rye really is a fascinating place, and almost every building is like a historical picture postcard. The Mermaid Inn has some great ghosts in, let's face it, a stunning setting. But as for that Tower Jail, well, to me, it was very oppressive, and I'm rather glad to be walking away from it. This is Mitchelham Priory near Hailsham in Sussex, and as you can see, it's a gorgeous building. It's surrounded by a moat and it dates back to 1229. That's 800 years of history, and that usually provides for some great ghosts.
Mitchelham was originally founded as an Augustine priory back in the 13th century, but the building you see today was largely rebuilt in the Victorian era after a series of fires. It has a reputation for being one of the most haunted places in Sussex, and one of the Priory's official guides, Roy Le Croisette, agreed to introduce me to some of the ghosts.
Oh, so they didn't live here, down here?
Michaela, welcome to the Prior's room. This room is reputed to be the most haunted in the building. Some people are absolutely terrified of this room. Now, we're going to go into and have a look in this corner, and let me tell you a little story. One day I came in here and I saw a little girl there, something between the ages, I would think, of about 6 and 10. And we had a little bit of conversation from there. She said, "You're not coming any further, please." I said, "OK, I respect what you said." She said, "But later on, we will meet again, I hope." I said, "So do I." And then she just disappeared. There was nobody there. This little girl, I think, had a very unhappy childhood, and she was desperate, that's the way I pick it up, and she was desperate for somebody that she could talk to, and I happened to be the lucky person.
Well, obviously this is the kitchen.
Yes, indeed, Michaela, and this is our lovely kitchen, which is something over 200 years old, and you'll see the different bits we've got in here. And it was in this room that I had a most interesting experience at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And it was in here that I met a character standing over there dressed as a cook or a chef. And the first thing I noticed was that he had a nice long knife, about that end long, and one end was slightly scooped, and he was working on a piece of meat on the spit down here, and he was cutting out the bad bits and chucking them away, and I thought that was very nice of him. And we got talking, and amongst other things, he said yes. He said, of course, he said, this is hard work. I said, well, why? He said, what? I said, what do you like doing? He said, the easiest thing of the lot is eels. He said, because I can cook those so fast and people think they're wonderful.
Boy, if you'd reached out to him, what would you have felt? Would you have been able to feel him?
He was very real, slightly red face. He had some sort of an apron on, brawny great arms, that much I do remember, and a sense of humour. He was stouter than I am, put it that way.
But it's not just the guides that have seen ghosts. Paranormal investigator Clint Davey has spent many nights at Mitchelham and believes that it is haunted.
Well, we've had a few paranormal experiences here. Part of our group that we were in, been here on 3 separate occasions. And we were just drawn to the place from hearing what other people had experienced here. Particularly one point of interest is at the entrance to this place, the gatehouse. And there are talks of a grey lady that is supposed to be seen staring into the moat, looking for her daughter that either vanished or drowned. And the story is that she killed herself and a small dog. So one particular evening we were setting up our equipment in the gatehouse. A vital piece of equipment had been left behind, so it was left to me to go and fetch this piece of equipment in the house. And it wasn't until I got outside of the gatehouse I realised that it is quite dark, so I started to run. And it wasn't until I started to run, it actually sounded like a small dog, like a terrier, was chasing me back to the house, and it spooked me quite a bit that a lot of the crew found it quite funny when I arrived and tried to explain that I'd been chased by a dog that wasn't there. So that was quite interesting.
And the dog definitely wasn't there, you checked?
It definitely wasn't there, no, but it was almost too good to be true that I felt as if something had run in and was chasing me, but it was dark and I was too scared to look behind. There was another occasion in the music room, and as we walked in there were, we found a nice spot in the room, 4 of us stood together, just lights off, trying to see what we could pick up, if there's anything we could find. And the best part of this, I didn't actually see this, but 2 other people in my group could back it up and say they saw it themselves. It was a full moon, and it was putting shadows through the leaded windows onto the fireplace. And it was at that point where 2 of them jumped at the same time and noticed a shadow on the fireplace coming from outside of a man in a tall hat that seemed to go past the window, and the fact that they both saw it at the same time and could back it up was quite fascinating.
This is the actual footage that Clint's paranormal group shot that night. There is something moving in front of the lens, but is it part of an outline of a ghost or just a piece of fishing wire?
There was another time in the music room, one of the girls in the group was videoing, and each video was about an hour long, but it was only 20 minutes in. She slammed the lens cap onto the camera. All she told us was that we need to get out now. Of course, spooked, we all got outside, and with a shaking hand, she drew a picture of a face that she saw quite close by her, which seemed to be a man, and all she could make it was the top of an airman's uniform, and she even described the colour as brown. And it's not through looking through research afterwards, finding out that a lot of Canadian Air Force stayed here during the Second World War, and that spooked her quite a bit.
Chris Tuckett is the caretaker manager of Mitchelham and lives on the premises. One night, he was woken by a terrifying noise.
I've been living here for 12 years, and in the first 2 weeks I was here, I experienced 2 really vivid things that happened to me. And firstly, there was a bureau. When I moved in, we put a bureau here. 3 or 4 nights later, I woke up in the bedroom and I could hear this really loud banging in my bedroom's next door. I was terrified. I hid under my duvet 15 minutes and after some time developed the courage to come in, turn the light on and have a look. And walked over and it looked like the bureau had moved, but just a couple of feet, until I looked at the floor and there was a huge figure-of-8 scratch which came out and came back on itself. And that really, really freaked me out. I've got to be honest with you, I've been here 12 years now. That first 2 weeks was awful, it really was. I'm a local guy, I'm not scared of the dark, and I never used to believe in ghosts. I do now.
Is there any historical evidence of what that could possibly have been?
Not to my knowledge. I know it sounds crazy to you, but I don't really want to know. I live in this place and I've learned to deal with it, and it's sort of like a subconscious deal. I think if I don't intrude with them, hopefully they won't interfere with me too much.
There was one more twist to the tale, though. Clint Davies' paranormal group had taken a series of photos in the gatehouse stairwell, one of which seems to have a figure of 8 in it, the same pattern that the caretaker said was carved into his floor. Make of that what you will.
Well, that's it from Sussex. We visited 2 stunning places, Michelham Priory and the Mermaid Inn in Rye. Both have had fascinating histories and some great British ghosts. See you next time. Bye-bye. And welcome to Great British Ghosts. Today I've come to the Royal County of Gloucestershire, which is home to some of the most haunted sites in the whole of Britain. Later I'll be going on a tour of 17th century Chavenage House, but first I've come to Gloucester High Street, and between all the shops is a real hidden gem and one of the most haunted places in the whole area.
The New Inn dates back to the 14th century. It was originally built to house pilgrims visiting the shrine of King Edward II at nearby Gloucester Cathedral and has over 700 years of history. William Shakespeare once performed here, and Lady Jane Grey stayed here only to be beheaded later.
What's really interesting about the New Inn is the amount of paranormal activity that's happened in recent years, from people being pushed and shoved in the cellar, to the spirits of children playing in the courtyard, to the most famous incident, the pint of beer that mysteriously slid itself off the table and onto the floor.
It happened on a night that we had a quiz on. Mark and I weren't down. And the guys just said to us the next day, oh yeah, one of the ghosts knocked a pint off. We were like, yeah, okay, whatever. And it was probably about a week later, I went, oh, stop going on about it. I checked the CCTV, and to say it put goosebumps all down my back. It was just to see it looked like it got flung off the table.
Local paranormal researcher Lynn Cindery was in the pub when it happened.
I was sitting right here that night and I couldn't believe what happened. Over there, on that table, there was a full pint. There was 4 people sat there. I was here, other people were sat there, and the 4 people saw the glass move just a little bit across the table and then flick right over, fall onto the floor. The rest of us heard the thud. And we all looked round and were shocked at what we saw.
How come it was caught on camera?
Because the CCTV camera is just up there, and it always points that way, over in the corner, where a ghost of a lady has been seen. And she is supposedly the nanny of the 2 children that died in the fire. And she wants to sit there to look out into the courtyard to try and connect again to the 2 children.
There actually was a fire in the pub back in the 19th century, where 2 children did die.
I've obviously seen the footage, and I can see why a lot of people think it was fake.
Yeah.
Do you think it was fake?
No, definitely not. I was here, they weren't. And why would we fake it? And I would swear on the Bible to anybody, it was not faked.
In that particular room at the back, I felt presence myself on that particular table, and we've had so many customers that have come in and actually seen things being dragged on the table, like menus, without no explanation. There might not be anybody in there at the time. So there's a lot of poltergeist activity on that side, definitely, without a shadow of a doubt.
I can categorically say what you see is what's happened. No trickery involved. Could it have slid off the table? Of course it could. Could it have done this? Could it have blasted out? Of course it could. What happened is what you see. We did not fake anything at all on it.
But it's not just the bar that's experienced paranormal activity. There have been ghosts reported in almost every corner of the hotel. And Lynn agreed to show me around, starting with the most haunted bedroom.
So just down the corridor here, we have the famous Oak Suite, most haunted room in the whole of the inn.
So there's a lot of activity there, a lot of bumps in the night.
Oh yes, definitely. And it's a pretty spooky room to be in. Here we are, the Oak Suite. There is a heavy atmosphere at times, and even when you open the door, you can feel it. You can feel that somebody's already in there, or it's almost like you hear, shh, quick, they're coming. That sort of eerie feeling that you just know something's in there or something's going to happen. Sometimes it can be very nice, and sometimes it can be quite creepy.
Well, it's certainly old. Look at it, it's amazing.
It is, it's lovely. It's the 18th century panels, but we feel that they've are a lot older and have come from somewhere else. We don't know where. So whoever brought them here, it may even have the energies from the place it was before. We have several encounters in here of ghosts. This area here, there has been seen a man in a dark costume, and he comes out to the wall and he's almost looking around at everybody that's in here, and then he won't go any further. He stops right here.
Have you seen him?
Just a shadow of a dark figure. There's been several incidents in there. A gentleman that stayed here, he thought that somebody had got into bed with him in the night, and he was half asleep and thought, oh, it's my wife, and then jumped up quick, realised it wasn't his wife, and he wasn't even home. And over here, by the bed, a friend of mine was sat here. She was a skeptic, didn't believe at all. Think anything would frighten her at all. Suddenly burst out crying, uncontrollably, in front of everybody. People have felt taps pushed in there, sparkly lights have been seen in there, the curtains or the drapes on the four-poster bed have been moving as if somebody's been tapping it. I think it's just the sheer history of the building and how many people over 600 years have actually been in there.
So what's this?
This is a fantastic piece here. This is a hidden door.
What was it used for?
We believe a priest hole.
Why did priests use it?
The dissolution of the monasteries with Henry VIII. If the priests were in this room and they heard the soldiers coming, they would go into here and hide, and the priest, they wouldn't see them because of the panels and the hidden door.
Over the last 10 years, there have been more than 100 reported ghost sightings and paranormal events in the hotel, making it one of the most active places in the UK.
Our daughter, I thought I heard a little girl talking to her. I mean, it was the dead of night, I couldn't sleep. And I could hear like a murmuring around, and I thought, what is it? I couldn't figure it out at all. And I flung the door open to see if there was anybody in there or, you know, what was in there, and it just stopped dead completely. And I was like, OK, I'm going back to bed now. Close the door. I still don't know what it was, but it sounded like a young child talking to my daughter.
And in through here, we have the oldest part of the building.
So when does it date back to?
1450.
Whoa, that is old, isn't it?
It is old, yes, indeed. And this is the old attic, or loft. And in through there is the original old stairs. At the back of there is a man that's quite menacing. And when we've done overnight investigations here, he's come forward and he's all dark, all cloaked, and he only comes halfway through and he won't come any further. Most of us are fearful of the unknown, and that's quite natural, very, very natural. The only reason that I'm not as fearful most of the time is because I do it more and more and more, and I'm understanding more and more and more. Most cellars, as we know, we don't like, because they're down underground, they're dark, they smell. But in my experience, some cellars are quite oppressive feelings, especially this one.
So there's been a lot of activity down here?
Oh, yes. Definitely a lot of activity down here.
Why does anyone come down here?
Because we're crazy. This area alone, just underneath these pipes here.
Yeah.
We've had phenomenal stuff under here. Now, it's a bit tricky. You're going to have to really sort of get under. OK, go careful. There's a man down here. He's very intimidating. He doesn't like the women. When he lived here, he got the ladies pregnant, and then when they were pregnant, he disposed of them by throwing them off the balcony. And there is also another theory that possibly they might be hidden behind the walls here.
Oh no, that's
and
really
when we're down here, and then we get these noises, it's almost as like he doesn't like us here and he's telling us to get out.
It's quite common knowledge I don't like it down there at all. It's very foreboding, very sort of just... every time I go down there, I just get chased back out of it, so don't like it at all.
It's quite an overwhelming feeling when you go down there. I've been down there once in the time that we've been here, and I won't go down again. I know I won't. I don't want to. It's not a nice feeling.
The skeptics will say the ghosts are in our imagination. I believe that they are real because I've seen them, I've spoke to them, I've sensed them. There's some things that happen that just are beyond normal explanation. That's why it's called paranormal, out of the normal.
Well, whether the moving pint of beer was a paranormal event or not, there's no doubt about it that the New Inn is definitely a very special place. It's a hidden gem with an intriguing history, where the ghosts, spirits and stories literally seep through the walls, and everyone who works here just treats them all as part of the family.
I believe the New Inn's definitely haunted. If you'd have asked me before I lived here, I would have said no. I wouldn't have believed it. But now that I've been here as long as we have, I'd say definitely haunted, and I believe in it wholeheartedly.
This amazing building is Chavenage House in Tetbury in Gloucestershire. It dates back to the Elizabethan period, and not surprisingly, it's packed full of haunted history, including a headless horseman.
Chavenage is a remarkable place. During the Civil War, it was visited by Oliver Cromwell. Today, it's a family home with many features untouched for over 300 years. The man who's literally grown up with the spirits is George Losley Williams, whose family have owned the house for generations.
Right, Michaela, this is really the main part of the house, the historical side. This is actually known as Cromwell's room.
So this is where he actually slept, in this bed?
This is the bed he slept in. It would have been a four-poster, but at some stage someone's actually just hacked off the main bit of the bed to make it into an ordinary-sized bed. But it is a contemporary bed with that period, and it could have been the actual bed that Cromwell slept in.
And, of course, lots of other really interesting people probably slept in this bed as well.
Well, the problem is that in living memory, no one has ever slept in this room because it had this kind of haunted feel about it. And over the course of centuries, no one has actually slept in it. It used to be the main spare room, but I know of no one who's actually slept in it. If you come into this room, there's an atmosphere you can feel. I don't know if you can feel it now. It's quiet, it's very cold. It's always a very cold room anyway, but even in a kind of hot summer's day, it is a cold room. And the story, the last major ghost story of this house was that we were filming here and there was wires and generators all outside coming through. And an electrician was tasked to come up here during their coffee break and add to the wires. And as he was bending down, he felt some force on his back pressing him onto the ground. And he looked around, he couldn't see anyone. There's no one around here, and he knew none of the stories of the house, so he carried on. And the next thing was that he was actually being physically forced into the floorboards, his head pinned to the ground. And everyone was outside having their coffee, and this figure was seen running down, saying, "I'm never going back in that house again." And that was the last we ever saw of him.
Well, there's been so many strange things. I mean, when we had the ghost hunters, and the sort of tool of trade, one of them is a big thermometer. And going from room to room, suddenly I have seen, you know, the thermometer drop. And they say that is often a sign of something in the spiritual line.
It was Sunday, and I went up into the tapestry rooms and walked in, and I felt a presence there. Bravely, I went into the room and still felt, and at that moment I was absolutely convinced there was something in the room, almost like a poltergeist.
My grandmother had that room exorcised, and she did a belt and braces job by having a service performed jointly, both by Church of England and Roman Catholic priests.
Despite the eerie history of the bedrooms, the most famous haunting at Chavenage actually occurred out in the driveway. It was said that one night back in the mid-17th century, a headless coachman drove up to the main door and carried off the body of its then owner, General Nathaniel Stevens.
Nathaniel Stevens was a Member of Parliament. He was a parliamentary member for South Gloucestershire, and he was quite influential. He had a group of friends that Cromwell needed on side to get the bill to go through Parliament to kill Charles. So he came down here 3 times, and the first 2 visits, Nathaniel was a fit, strong man and could cope with him. The 3rd time, he was actually not very well, and basically to get rid of Cromwell, he agreed just to move on. And as soon as he agreed, his daughter then cursed him. And the story of this house was that the old colonel was dying, and the guests were all gathered around to watch him die. And they saw this very embellished carriage arrive at the gateway, came down to the front door. The carriage stopped, and they saw that it was being driven by a headless horseman. The shroud of the old colonel was then seen to lift out of his body, drift into the carriage. The door then shut, and the carriage drove off, and was last seen being devoured by the flames of hell.
No way!
And that all happened just here. So this is our Civil War memorabilia, and we've got a copy of the actual document of the death warrant of Charles I, signed by all the relevant MPs. And after he was executed, there's an actual locket of Charles I's hair put on a brooch, again to show people what they'd been fighting for in the Civil War and prove that he was dead. And there's a bit of his actual hair in there.
So people went to his severed head and started chopping his hair off?
He was fairly ripped apart to get bits and pieces off him. This is a fairly pro-Charles I, if you read the document about it. It was one made into a nice locket, but with his hair.
Gee, I find that quite haunting.
That is quite spooky.
I think it's always been told we were the haunted house, or the second most haunted house in Gloucestershire. And really, from the day we were born, it was, you know, have you seen the ghosts at Chavenage? And certainly the headless coachman has been a story. When you say Chavenage, that's what everyone thinks of. And so, I mean, not that I've ever seen him myself, but we're always there. And I remember actually the first time I ever really noticed that I was going to sleep here alone. It was quite a daunting sight. So as you probably met, most of our dogs, they slept with me that night.
So this is one of the other stories of the house, and through this door is, if I could open it,
Oh, it's a great door.
you will find this very small little window. And that window actually is in direct line with Beverson Castle, which was a royalist castle. And the story was one of the maids here used to signal to her boyfriend, who was one of the guards at the royalist castle, by putting a light in this window. And as soon as that light shone, they would have a meeting point. The only trouble was they got caught one night and they were put to death.
And does she come back as a ghost?
Well, this is a story. I've, again, never seen anything of her, but the story was that her spirit's still around, still signaling through. So if you see a light in that window, you know she's around.
Oh, that's quite a tragic, romantic love story,
Very
isn't
romantic.
it? Yeah.
So we go outside. And it was here that I had my first real experience of a ghost, because when I was very young, when I was about 8, my first camping experience was literally just here, about 5 feet from the house. And a friend of mine were camping, and we woke up very early, as you do when you're camping. We looked out a little tent, and we saw this dark figure of a horse and a man on it with a big black hat. And it was just over there. So we looked at it, and we kind of zipped it up quickly, went and hid in our sleeping bags, and again wouldn't come out till someone actually came out to see if we were all right. It was about 9 o'clock, so it was about 3 hours shaking in our little camp beds.
That must have been terrifying
Absolutely
for an 8-year-old.
terrifying, and we still talk about it today.
And did you both see it vividly?
We both saw it, and both, it's not one of our imagination, we both could describe exactly the same figure.
The main house has a small chapel attached to it, which also has its resident ghost, a hooded monk.
Some time ago, while my uncle was still alive, just before dinner, I went into the chapel to say my prayers. And all the time I was in one of the pews, there was a monk knelt at the altar rail. I wanted to go up and tap him on the shoulder and ask him where he'd come from. But he seemed to be so engrossed in his prayers that I didn't like to disturb him. So I tiptoed out of the door and left him to his praying.
I'm convinced there are ghosts, and I know people have been here before, but I'm not a person that's looking out for somebody with a white sheet and black eyes. I think it's more history, and if it helps you tell a story, and I'm sure, certainly, I mean, living in a house which your family have been in quite a long time, not only are they looking down from up there at you, they are also wandering past, and hopefully occasionally, you know, wish you luck on the way.
Chavenage House really is a picture postcard of what a haunted house should look like, which is probably why it's been used for so many movies and TV series. And whether those stories are just embellished legends or events that can be practically explained, they certainly are all great ghost stories. Well, from me in Gloucestershire, that's it. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Welcome to Great British Ghosts. Today we're in the heart of the Cotswolds. Later on I'll be going to the village of Prestbury, which is said to be the most haunted village in the whole of England. But first I'm on my way to Woodchester Mansion, a magnificent Gothic-style manor house. It's not an easy place to find, and let me tell you, even this driveway has an eerie, haunted feel about it.
Today's mansion was built in the late 19th century, but sits on the site of a much earlier house which dated back to the 1600s. And the estate itself can trace settlements back to pre-Roman times. But perhaps the most intriguing thing about Woodchester Mansion is that it was never actually finished. The Freemason who built it, William Lee, ran out of money before it could be completed, and it stayed pretty much in the same condition for the last 150 years. But building this Gothic fantasy came at a human cost. There were 7 deaths, 6 bad accidents, and even a murder while it was being constructed. And some say that the mansion is cursed.
You do hear very unusual things throughout the day. Some of them you can explain, you know, birds flying around, possible tiles slipping, but there are every now and again noises that I have no idea where they come from, what's making them, and it is quite strange. The previous director came down here with her partner, and she thought that the paranormal was just a lot of hocus pocus. And they were down in the cellar, I believe, just having a normal chat. And all of a sudden, his hard hat just flew off of his head. And because she was with him, I think it worried her ever so slightly as well, because of course you're very sceptical about these things until you actually experience something yourself.
Local historian and paranormal investigator Chris Howley has spent years investigating the ghosts at Woodchester Mansion, and he agreed to show me around.
Hi, Michaela.
Hi, Chris.
Nice to
How are
meet
you?
Welcome to Woodchester Mansion.
Well, this certainly looks like an eerie part of the house.
The whole building is quite eerie. This is one of the hot spots that we're walking into now. This is where we believe we've got a resident poltergeist, one of these spirits that are renowned for throwing things around. So it's quite an interesting part of the building.
And have you witnessed that yourself?
I have, yes. So it was a group of 4 of us. We were coming in from this corridor, the one you've just walked up one night. And as we approached the turning down to the chapel, a stone came out and landed at our feet. So nobody in the corridor. I mean, we looked straight down there. There's somebody messing around, but there was nobody down there at all.
And was it coming at you sideways?
It just came out of the corridor, about this high off the ground, landed at our feet. No explanation for it.
Jeez, it's not as if a bat or a bird could have dislodged it.
Well, no, I mean, that's one of the theories. It's an old building. People say if you've got a stone throw, surely it's masonry falling. But that night, definitely not. No explanation. I was completely sceptical 7 years ago of anything paranormal. This building has changed my views. I'm still sceptical of the general things that people jump at and instantly assume as a ghost. But with this building, I've had experiences that I have no rational explanation for. This leads down to our mortuary.
Oh my goodness, well if ghosts are going to hang out anywhere, it's going to be in a mortuary, isn't it?
Just through here. Okay, this is actually a Victorian game larder, but the reason we've nicknamed it the mortuary is because during the Second World War we had American and Canadian troops stationed at the mansion doing exercises in preparation for D-Day. Unfortunately, there was an accident down at the lakes where one of the pontoon bridges collapsed, killing several of the troops. Their bodies were stored in this room prior to being shipped back to America. So we think some of the ghostly apparitions of American servicemen within the building stem from this room.
Has anyone actually seen soldier ghosts or spirits?
They have. Interestingly enough, 2 years ago, we sent somebody on a lone vigil upstairs, at another location which I will show you later, where they took a picture which appears to be an American serviceman.
No way, they've actually got a photograph of him.
We've actually got a photograph of him, yeah. I was there the night that photograph was taken. Skeptically, I examined the camera to check the DSCO references of each picture, and the picture hadn't been added to the memory card prior to the time that the person went up there. So we've since had that verified by universities, and I'm convinced that we have genuinely got a photo of an airman from previous time.
Are there stories all over the house?
There are. I mean, if we come to this rather grand spiral staircase here, there's a monk that comes down this stairwell out through the doorway and walks into the chapel itself.
Well, is that something that regularly happens?
I wouldn't say regular. As with all of the sightings in this building, they're infrequent. You just never know when you're going to get them. But we have actually caught this on video. We've got some footage of this monk walking across that doorway.
And what does he look like in the footage?
Well, in the footage, it's your typical ghost. It's grainy, but it's just a hooded, shaped figure that glides across the doorway.
What do you think it actually was?
We tried to disprove the hooded figure because the only thing we could come up with that would cause that sort of anomaly on camera would be a light form, whether that be torchlight or car headlights set in the car park. So we reassembled everything the following weekend, and we were trying all sorts. We had torches shining through every window. We had cars turning around in the car park, trying to shine light into the area in as many different ways as we could, but none of them come close to even barely recreating anything on camera.
We had a caretaker, Mr. Fry, who lived here for 17 years. He had lots of stories to tell, but the one that always stuck with me was that he'd been, obviously still is in a long-term relationship, and his partner would stay over here on the odd occasion, but she would not move in with him. And one of the stories that she told me that really sent shivers down my spine was when she was lying in bed one night, and because you're in the middle of nowhere, it's pitch black, but the moon was out. And she said she was laying in bed and she just saw a black kind of ghost move through the window and across the ceiling. I mean, it petrified her so much, she said she couldn't even get out of bed. And so that, I think, for me, was probably the scariest thing I've actually heard from somebody that's, you know, that has slept here.
Now, what's the one animal you associate with haunted houses? Bats. Bats in the belfry, flying through the darkness, terrifying any unsuspecting visitors. Well, Woodchester Mansion certainly doesn't disappoint.
We've got all 4 species of bat which reside in the mansion. They are protected species, so they have been cordoned off from the rest of the building, but we have currently around 750 bats in residence.
Chris Romer is one of the few academics who have made a study of ghosts. He believes that there is something going on at Woodchester Mansion.
When I first came to Woodchester, it was as a cynic, because after all, although there was a house here before, Spring Park, this house has hardly ever been occupied, and why would a house where no one had lived been haunted? So I came here really expecting to disprove any ghost stories. And we heard someone coming down. It was just before dawn. Somebody came riding up towards the house, canter, down to a trot, down to a walk. And it seemed to actually go past us, but there was nobody there. We never did find a rational explanation for that. So even an old cynic like me had to say, well, actually that was very, very strange. So was it a genuine ghostly experience? I don't know, but I certainly, having talked to a lot of people over the years, would say that Woodchester is very haunted.
Okay, this is the area where we believe the ghost of the builder comes from. It's reported that one of the builders fell to their death. As you can see, we're quite high up, so it's quite a nasty drop down there. So quite a traumatic sort of death for somebody. And we do believe that a lot of the ghostly sightings do come from trauma. And this is the area. I personally think that you need to consider the house has been stood for 150 years unoccupied. So there's no soul to the building. There's never been any life in the building. So whether that's the reason the spirits congregate trying to bring life back into this stone shell, I don't know. And this is the way to the cellar, where we've had some really quite eerie activity.
The cellar's always haunted, isn't it? If anywhere's going to be haunted, it's the cellar.
I think you're going to like this. The main activity we've had in the cellar seems to be focused in this final vaulted room.
I've got to say, it's freezing down here, isn't it?
It does add to the atmosphere.
So what have you seen down here?
This area is quite bizarre. It seems that we have what we like to call an elemental, which isn't a ghost of a person or something that's lived. It seems to be a form of energy that feeds on people's fears. Now, this can manifest itself in many ways, but predominantly down here, it seems to just fill the room with this complete blackness where you can't even see your hand in front of your face.
So what does this energy form look like?
When the energy actually materialises into something visual, people have described seeing a Gollum-type character from Lord of the Rings hunched over on all fours and even feeling the touching on the back of the legs. The most recent activity at the mansion was a few weeks ago when a paranormal group on an overnight investigation had a particularly quiet night. At the end of the evening, around 4 o'clock in the morning, we were all in the drawing room while the host for the night was summing up, saying, "Thank you all for coming. We've had a really quiet night." However, it was at this point that we heard footsteps coming up from the library, stiletto heels tattooing across the wooden floor towards the drawing room. I immediately ran out of the drawing room through one door, the host the other, and we ran around the corner and met each other. There was nobody there. Everybody was accounted for. Everybody was in the drawing room, apart from whatever made these footsteps.
CJ, can you sum up what you think is going on here at Woodchester Mansion?
It could be that there are the spirits of the dead. It could be that the horseman we heard was in fact a murdered 18th century aristocrat. There are two stories that explain a ghostly cause for a horseman. Or it could be, as I said before, that somehow the expectation of seeing a ghost causes imagination, causes all kinds of other things to cut in, or maybe even allows our own psychic powers to come out and haunt us. And I find that the scariest prospect of all.
In many ways, Woodchester Mansion is a very beautiful building, but it's also a very disturbed one. Maybe it's the Gothic architecture, or the haunting stories, or perhaps it's just because it's been abandoned for over a century and a half, but it definitely has a bit of an eerie feel to it. And it's not surprising that this house is considered by some to be the most haunted house in Britain. This is Prestbury Village near Cheltenham in Gloucestershire, and it's the most haunted village in Britain. There are lots of ghosts that are regularly seen here, from a headless horseman riding through the village to a black abbot who wanders through the graveyard.
Here in Prestbury we have multitudes of ghosts. We've got a spinet player, we've got old Moses who's down on the corner over there, we've got the hanging man that's over there, we've got horses that come up and down here, there's a headless horseman, we have got, there's an old lady just round the corner that's seen collecting sticks along the street and then she just disappears. Another old lady around that corner that stares through people's windows and then she just disappears when you look up at her. I mean, that's just within 50 yards of where we're sat now. Bats.
Ross Andrews is a local historian who's written several books about the ghosts in Prestbury, and he agreed to take me on a tour of its most haunted sites.
I've seen ghosts as well. This is the important bit. One of the ghosts reported in Prestbury is of supposedly Fred Archer, a jockey. And we're now at the King's Arms, and he's responsible for quite a few of the hauntings here, which include poltergeist activity. It includes windows being opened and closed, even though the entire building has been locked up from the inside, and the only way you can open the windows is from the inside. Now, Fred has also been seen outside the pub, and just coming around this corner here, there was a group of ladies, this is going back quite a few years, and it was during Cheltenham Race Week, so you would expect to see a jockey, so they weren't too shocked when this jockey walked across the road. And he disappeared halfway across the road. They're all rather freaked out, and they went round the corner, and the whole thing happened again. Fred walked across the road and then disappeared halfway across the road.
And he's dressed as a jockey?
As a jockey, yes.
How did he die?
Supposedly he hanged himself here in the pub.
So Ross, Prestbury is said to be the most haunted village, is it?
Well, there's a lot of places that will lay claim to the same thing, but Prestbury, in my research, I would say has more ghosts per square foot than any other village in the entire country.
And that's how it's measured?
I would say so, yes.
Do you have any idea how many different ghosts you've seen?
Well, when I've done the research, in the last 20 years, I would say you're looking at about 30 or more separate incidents, at least of separate ghosts, that is.
Well, that's a lot of ghosts.
Well, yeah, indeed. And for a ghost hunter like myself, it's the perfect place to go to.
Have there been hauntings here?
Yes, and it's rare, actually. Most graveyards aren't actually haunted, whereas this one has possibly one of the world's most famous ghosts in it.
Really?
This one's called the Black Abbot, and he starts walking through the village, and he always starts off here, ends up walking down to the High Street, and as they walk along the High Street, he ends up in a place called Reform Cottage, and that's apparently where all the monks were buried. The theory is you can see him at Christmas time, Easter time and All Saints' Day, supposed to wander through the village, but so many people have reported him all times of the year, in the middle of the day, middle of the night. So, as you leave the graveyard, you end up in one of the most haunted streets in the world. This is Mill Street. Right, well, this street here is notorious for hauntings, including the Plough Inn here, but my favourite ones are actually outside. We have a marching army that comes down here. It gets heard more than seen.
I was going to say, no one surely has seen a whole marching army.
Yep, yeah, in the fields behind here, they've seen an army marching across.
Really?
But they've heard it marching up and down this road. And one story is a man was walking his dog along here, which is a rare occurrence anyway, and the dog just wouldn't move as these soldiers were marching along, at which point they stopped marching and then the dog sort of ran off. Well, this street here, this is called the Burgage, yet again, a pub here that reports many ghosts. But one of the famous ghosts that they'll report is actually outside in the street. And Prestbury has about 3 famous horseman ghosts, several of which are headless and so on, and one of them happens outside here. And there are reports going way back to Civil War times when a dispatch rider was coming across from Evesham and heading that way, came along the road and somebody had stretched a rope across the road and it took his head off.
The local residents are proud that Prestbury is said to be the most haunted village in Britain, and many have their own ghostly tales to tell.
But when I came home early one morning, I was coming down the high street, coming around the corner in my car, literally got 15 yards around the corner, and there's a black, solid, monk-like figure stood in my lane, not moving, not flinching, so didn't know what it was, basically drove round it, headed off, I don't know where it went.
As I came round that way in my car from down Cleeve Hill, I just come around the corner and he just sort of glides across the road and through the wall. I thought, oh, happy, that's nice. But you're not frightened. No, you just think,
None of them frighten us. I don't think
No.
anybody's frightened of any of the experiences they've had in the village. Nobody sort of goes around quaking or anything. It's just part of village life, really. We had a lady
lady come in here once who had never been to the salon before, never been to this area before, and she walked up the stairs and said, "Is there a presence here?" She said, I can feel something, and I believe his name is George.
Well, they say that village life is full of interesting characters, but I think most people expect them to be live ones. Here, however, there's a whole host of fascinating ghostly characters too, which are just part of the rich tapestry of Prestbury village life. Stick around here for long, you don't know who I might bump into. See you next time. Bye-bye. Welcome to Great British Ghosts. Today I've come to Essex, and later on I'm going to be visiting something completely different, a haunted nuclear bunker. But first of all, I'm in Colchester, which claims to be the oldest town in Britain, and I'm going to find out about the ghosts of one of the oldest inns in the area, the Red Lion Hotel. The Red Lion Hotel dates back to the 15th century and is steeped in history. The main reception room, with its wooden beam ceiling, was used by Oliver Cromwell for his first People's Parliament. It's said to be haunted by more than 3 different ghosts, including a former chambermaid, Alice Catherine Miller, who was murdered here back in 1638. To make this place even more intriguing, in recent years, paranormal investigators have taken actual photos of what they claim are the spirits that haunt the hotel. Local historian Derek Ray has been leading people around Colchester's haunted hotspots, including the Red Lion, for over a decade. So, Derek, I guess the fact that Colchester has had such an incredibly long history that we know of, that's why there are so many ghosts here.
Well, Michaela, you'd be absolutely right to think that. We've got nearly 2,000 years of history in this town. It's the oldest recorded town in the country. We have over there the oldest Christian church in the country, the oldest Christian graveyard in the country. We've had Vikings here, not just the Romans, but Vikings, 17th century highwaymen. We've got ghosts everywhere around here. It's one of the most haunted places, I would say, in the entire country. This is the Red Lion Hotel. This is one of the ancient inns of Colchester. For over 500 years now, this has been a hotel in Colchester. And Michaela, with the thought of blood on our minds, may I introduce you to the ghost that haunts the Red Lion Hotel in Colchester.
And who was the ghost?
Well, her name was Alice Catherine Miller. She was a young chambermaid here, and it's in the records that she was young and fresh-faced. By young, they would mean somebody 15 or younger. By fresh-faced, they would mean somebody who hadn't been attacked awfully by smallpox. Everybody was disfigured, but she was most likely a dairymaid. Her face was clean and fresh. This was very desirable in 1638. And there was one man of that time. He came here and he saw that young girl. He was a justice of the peace, he was a magistrate, he was a powerful, influential man in the town, and he lusted after that young girl. This man offered her freedom, a chance to break away from the drudgery, a chance at a rich life, and she fell for that liar. A few months later, she came back to him with endearment, affection, and love. This time she was mostly, I would imagine, that she was pregnant, because this time it was no longer here, wench. This time it was be gone, wench. He beat her and he beat her. He told her to go away, He laughed in her face. You're just a chambermaid. The idea of me marrying you. Be gone. Until finally, in this room above, in 1638, he beat Alice Catherine Miller until he was holding in his arms her poor, pitiful dead body. And then in some attempt to make it look like suicide, a pathetic attempt, he prized open that window and threw her body out for it to fall just here. And the lifeblood of Alice Catherine Miller seeped away between the old paving stones in this courtyard into the even more ancient cellars beneath. And since that time, she has been, in a very real sense, part of the very fabric of this building.
David Mayhew has spent years investigating the hauntings at the hotel and is well acquainted with Alice.
She's very prominent in here and she makes appearances on very many occasions. It's not unheard of for objects to be moving around when people are staying here or even in the restaurant eating. She'll come up, she'll touch you. We've had people here that have been spoken to by Alice. She'll come up and tell you when there's somebody downstairs. She'll walk around, she'll make appearances, so she's very prominent in the actual place.
But it's not just the ghost hunters who've seen things. The staff too have had their own unexplained experiences.
One of the most amazing experiences we've had here is the assistant manager. She was asleep in one of the rooms, and it was about 2, 3 in the morning. She woke up and there was a rocking chair at the end of the bed, and she just saw a white sort of, I wouldn't say a figure, just the chair was rocking and there was a sort of white presence there, and then it soon disappeared and the chair just kept rocking.
Can you tell me what she looks like?
We don't really know what she looks like. She never really materialises that much that you can actually distinguish any facial features or any bodily features. You'll see her more as a blur or as a figure.
I've been doing the ghost tours of Colchester for about 13 years, but just when I started, I was phoned up by a man who worked here in the 1950s. He was then aged only about 15 years old, and he worked here as a bootblack. And he told me the story of carrying a tray of teapots and teacups and saucers, and he opened up this doorway here, and there on the other side, looking at him straight in the eye, was Alice Catherine Miller. The tray went up in the air, the teapots and the teacups smashed all around here.
When you've done your investigations, you've managed to take some photographs. Can you tell me about the photographs?
Yeah, the photographs that we've actually taken in the Red Line, we've had in various different rooms. We've had a monk that's appeared in one of the photographs in one of the function rooms. We've had several figures of a lady and a child, which we actually think is Alice. And upstairs in one of the bedrooms, we have caught a big black shape going across the room as well. This is where we actually think that Alice lived, which is right above your heads here. It's not a huge space, it's very dark, very creepy, very small.
So basically she was in the attic, and although that's really horrible for us with our standards, that was fairly normal.
It was probably a paradise for her at that time, at that stage. I mean, if you come through to the actual restaurant here, and you can see here the height of the hall, and it would have gone across, there would have been another floor that we think went across the top. As you can see, there's part of a doorway at the top there. It's very small, but again, you go back to those ages and people were very small anyway, so the doorways were never very big. So that was there. It's since been blocked off and it's structurally unsafe now. But Alice is still around in here. We have had lots of occurrences in here. We have had lots of guests that have sat down to eat to find things moving. We've had the night watchman who's come from the side, walked through here doing his normal walk. He's gone down to the end, he's come back, and as he's come back in, all of the cushions off the sofas have been stacked one on top of each other. So there's a lot of things that happen in here, and Alice is responsible for those.
And although she's been dead for nearly 200 years, young Alice is still appearing to the guests and the staff today.
Just underneath Alice's bedroom, just a few weeks ago, there was a young mother and a young boy. The little boy was about 5 years old, and he was playing noisily with his toy cars. And suddenly, he went quiet. Now, let me tell you, with 5-year-old boys, when they go quiet, you're worried. She turned to him, she said, "What's the matter with you?" And he turned to her with all the innocence, with all the sincerity of youth. He turned to her and he said, "The Grey Lady asked me to be quiet." The Grey Lady is one of Alice's nicknames.
We've had a customer, they've stayed with their little boy, and at reception, he cried every time he walked out the reception door, so she had put a hood over his head, and then they went downstairs, and then he was fine. And then she woke up in the middle of the night to him laughing. So she said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm playing peebo with the lady." So she flicked the light on and went to sleep with the light on.
The main manifestation happened, well, quite a few months ago now. The then assistant manager of this hotel was staying overnight. And one of the perks of the job, he just decided to book himself into the best room in the hotel. And that is one of the rooms that Alice likes to frequent. And his exact words to me about what happened were these. "I awoke," he said. "I awoke at about 3 in the morning. I didn't know what was happening to me. I was shaking like a leaf. I couldn't stop myself shaking. I sat up in the bed. I didn't know what was going on. And I saw in that room, there's a rocking chair. And as I looked at it, I saw that rocking chair begin to rock to and fro. And then it was as if tendrils in the air moved into the chair. And so slowly, forming in that chair, was a figure. And then there she was, Alice Catherine Miller, sitting in that chair, 1 foot on the floor, gently rocking herself back and forth. I looked at her, she looked at me, he said, and then Alice Catherine Miller spoke to him. Her exact words were simple. She said to him, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" Seeing him shaking in the bed. And he said, "Yes, I am all right." And she nodded her head. And then the figure slowly, ever so slowly, disappeared, leaving the rocking chair still rocking on its own.
There are certain rooms in the Red Lion I won't even go into alone. One being the function room. I've walked in there before, had the door slammed behind me, and I felt rather scared, let's say, going in there. There is an electrical atmosphere about. A lot of people do come in. They'll sit down, they'll actually complain with headaches and having colds, which are classic signs of actually spirits drawing energy from you. There are a lot of occurrences when you walk around to the Red Lion, you'll get a chill up your back. It's just like somebody standing there right next to you, and you will feel it. Here, we have one of the haunted rooms. Now, lovely old room.
Yeah.
There's been a lot happening here that I've experienced and other people have experienced. One of them being with this bed.
Yeah.
We've had somebody that's been on the bed during an investigation. I've actually been down the side here, and while she's been there, we've had a figure actually pull her feet and try to pull her off the bed. We've had another instance where one of the maids was in here, was literally cleaning, got pushed onto the bed, and the bed was shaking like so. And it would take a lot of force to shake this bed. It is very, very strong. I think it's so haunted because of the actual history of the place. The amount that has taken place here over the years with people dying, people being killed. Also, suicides have been known to be taking place in the area as well.
Well, guess where I'm sleeping? Room 7, the most haunted room in the Red Lion. And I'm telling you, if I wake up with a bed shaking, somebody grabbing my ankle, or Alice wandering about the room, I'm going to freak out. It's a good job I'm a heavy sleeper. Night-night.
I've come to Kelvedon Hatch in Essex, and behind me is what looks like a very ordinary, slightly run-down farm building. And until 20 years ago, this house hid a big government secret. Underneath it is a nuclear bunker, which has been described as a concrete coffin for 600 living people. And that sounds like a great place to look for ghosts.
Kelvedon Hatch Bunker is a relic of the Cold War. It was built in 1952 to act as an underground home for the British government in the event of a nuclear attack, and was still in use, ready to house hundreds of people at a moment's notice, right up to 1992. All you can see above ground is the guardhouse, which was built to look like a local farmhouse from the air. But closer inspection reveals steel shutters, bomb-proof doors, and 18-inch concrete walls. The bunker is hidden more than 100 feet underground and feels as if time has stood still inside for decades. It's an eerie place, and not surprisingly, its abandoned dormitories, control rooms and tunnels have become something of a magnet for paranormal activity. Its location was kept totally secret until it was decommissioned in 1992, when it was sold to a local farmer.
In its first life, it was built for about 600 people. But as time moved on and technology moved on, and indeed they changed it from being under the Air Ministry to being a regional government bunker, they reduced that to about 450. They were going to be down here for a minimum of 3 months, so the bunker has enough water and electricity and sewage works to be able to sustain that number of people for the 3 months.
How would it have worked? How would they know to come here?
Way before we read in the newspaper that there's going to be a crisis, there is that build-up of tension that the government knows about, and they would start supplying this with the food and the essentials that was required. People had already been designated as to who they were coming down here, and they would have been put on alert, and then they'd have come down in the period of tension to man the bunker and await, hopefully not await, the dreadful moment.
Chris Arnold is a paranormal investigator who's carried out a number of vigils in the bunker at night. He agreed to show me the areas where ghosts have been seen.
So how many paranormal investigations have happened here at the bunker?
Well, since it's become known as a haunted venue in the past few years, there is literally an investigation every weekend.
Every week?
Yeah, so it's heavily investigated. So we're in the main entrance tunnel now. There've been a few experiences in here. One experience I was actually present for, we had a group in here. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. We were in the darkness, but we had torches. And all of a sudden, 2 people at the end of the tunnel just screamed and started running towards us. Now, they said that they'd heard footsteps behind them. I turned to look and had seen a dark shadow, kind of figure-shaped, walking quite quickly towards them. They didn't hang around to kind of see if it had any features or anything. They basically legged it. But other people in that corridor have heard footsteps when there's been absolutely no one there. And one of the strangest stories here is of people seeing a woman in military uniform actually telling people to get out, telling them to stop, that they shouldn't be there. But she looks completely solid, just like you or I. This place is unusual. It does give me personally, and I'm sure with other people, it gives me a kind of creepy sensation. It's just a very unusual atmosphere, knowing that you're underground, just the artificial nature of the whole building and the knowledge of what it was intended for does give you an uncomfortable feeling.
Chris, what I find interesting is no one's actually lived here, so it's quite fascinating that people are seeing ghosts.
Well, people did actually live here for up to 2 weeks at a time when they were doing drills for, in the event of an actual nuclear war. But we do know of one death that happened on the site. When it was being built, the walls are kind of 10 feet thick, so they were pouring concrete into them night and day. They'd have a night shift and then a day shift. And the story goes that the morning shift came on and the foreman's hat was floating in a river of concrete and he was never seen again. So the assumption is that he was drowned and is still buried in the walls somewhere.
That's quite grisly. So obviously that could be one of the ghosts that's seen here.
Could be one of the ghosts. We've Heard no reports of anyone actually seeing a foreman, but he could be responsible for some of the activity, certainly. I do believe that there is something going on that we don't yet understand. Too many people have had experiences. You can't really say that they are all deranged or making it up. Statistically, that isn't possible. So some people are having genuine paranormal experiences. The fact that it's paranormal does not necessarily mean that it's ghostly or it's a spirit person. It could just be some phenomena that science doesn't yet understand, that we haven't yet been able to explain. OK, so this is the dormitory that forms part of the sick bay. The sick bay is particularly haunted, we believe. People have seen dark shadows flitting about. It's also supposedly haunted by a demonic entity. A lot of mediums have picked up on this demonic kind of negative energy, which I don't really see myself. I don't believe in that. But the other thing is that people have seen a freakishly tall elderly lady, which is a particularly bizarre story.
Do you think that might date back to what was here before?
It could be. It could go back further than the bunker itself. I think the bunker is a fascinating venue. Normally, your typical haunted building would be a castle or an old coaching inn. So this place is really unusual. The fact that it's allegedly haunted it's very curious. It makes you wonder, you know, who is haunting it and why they're still here.
So do you think this place is haunted?
I'm a total disbeliever, I'm afraid. We have lots and lots of paranormal groups down here. Almost all of them claim to find or see something. And I think, subscribe to the view that if you're not receptive, then of course you'll never see them. And I'm definitely not receptive.
Well, I found Kelvedon Hatch Secret Bunker absolutely fascinating, especially as I didn't even know these sort of places existed. Now, whether it's haunted or not is one thing, but what I find really haunting about it is not so much what you'd find inside, but what you would find outside after a nuclear attack. Now, that thought really is scary. See you next time. Bye-bye. And welcome to Great British Ghosts. Later, I'll be heading to London to one of the most haunted pubs in the city. But first of all, I've come to Nottingham, to the Galleries of Justice, a place where thieves and murderers would have been tried, jailed, and some of them even hanged right on these very steps. It's a building with a long and horrible history.
This current building was used as a courthouse and jail since 1780. And over the last 230 years, literally hundreds of prisoners have been executed here. Not surprisingly, it's believed to be one of the most haunted locations in Britain. Chris Arnold is a paranormal investigator who's experienced strange phenomena both in the cells below and in the main courtroom upstairs.
OK, so we're in the main courtroom now. This was actually used up until 1986, so it's used, you know, fairly recently. It's one of the hubs of paranormal activity in the Galleries of Justice. The main thing that's seen is black shadows darting kind of back and forth on the balcony. Many different people have seen these. And then the other thing that I personally witnessed in here, we had a public kind of ghost hunt, and we all saw flashing lights up on this corner. It's very strange. There, as you can see, aren't any lights up there at all.
What do you mean flashing lights?
It was like almost like firework effects,
Really?
like glittery, yeah, kind of balls of light. It was just very strange. Can't explain it. The thing that a lot of people have heard in here, blood-curdling screams, moans, sighs, just the sound of people just in kind of sheer agony or despair.
Well, there must have been a lot of despair in here. I mean, this is where people were sentenced to either their misery or their death. Yeah. And obviously, relatives that were sitting listening.
Exactly.
I mean, not only the victim themselves, but the relatives would have been in massive despair, wouldn't they?
So if you imagine coming in here and hearing that your loved one, you know, is going to be hanged outside on the steps, you know, there are going to be people moaning and all kinds of horrible feelings. The other interesting thing that happened in here in 1799 was they actually did a public dissection on the table here, and members of the public paid to come and watch one of the hanged people be cut up and have his entrails kind of displayed. Now, it was supposed to act as a deterrent to show that this is what would happen after you got hanged, but it was so popular that they had to stop it because people saw it as a great day's entertainment.
Oh, that's terrible, isn't it? Weren't they barbaric in those days?
Well, exactly.
Where's the empathy?
The Galleries of Justice is known as one of the most haunted places in the UK. In one study, it was kind of voted the most haunted building in the UK. There's a lot of activity that happens here.
Once the accused were found guilty, there was only one way for them to go, and that was down to either misery or execution.
Michaela, welcome to the county jail. Would you like to follow me?
Thanks.
I should take you down to our main cell block, which is located just around the corner here, where men and women were mixed all those years ago.
This way?
Yeah, down here, yes.
There are just over a dozen cells in all, stretching further and further underground. The oldest ones dated back to medieval times, and the conditions here, even just over a century ago, must have been appalling.
Down this corridor are main cells, but when this prison was full to capacity, you get about 70 odd inmates in around 15 cells on a couple of levels here. This is what we call our night cell.
So not terribly big.
No, and you've also got to bear in mind you have to share this space. So you're not by yourself by any means. This is designed for 3 inmates. So you and 2 strangers, you can still see the rings on the wall where the hammocks used to be.
Oh, so they'd actually get a bed?
Oh, only if you pay. I'm afraid if you didn't have any money, then you sleep on the floor. That is also your privy, so be careful where you lie down.
Privy, you mean toilet?
I'm afraid so, yeah, and it's your responsibility to clean it out in the morning.
And how long would prisoners have to stay here for?
Well, it's a night cell, so only locked actually in the room in the night. They would let you out in the day, which is nice of them, but you could be here for 2 weeks to up to a month. You're just passing through. You might be transported to Australia or executed in a couple of weeks. So you're just passing through to another location. You're not going to stay here for years, which is a good thing. I don't think you live that long if you did have to.
Obviously, there's been a lot of torment, a lot of pain and misery here, and a lot of death. So the first type of haunting we believe to be a kind of replay or an echo of things that would have happened here in the past. The second type of haunting we call intelligent haunting, where we believe it's an actual spirit, the soul of someone who has died, who is still active here, still walking the building, taking an interest in what is going on, and interacting with people.
This is actually probably the most modern part of the jail. Here we have the women's wing, the laundry, where women are expected to do washing all day long, 8 hours in fact, in silence.
So they weren't allowed to talk?
Oh no, talking spreads criminal activity.
That's tough for women.
It is very tough, yes. In fact, I've walked through here a few times and on a number of occasions, the old dolly tub there has been rattling away.
By itself?
Maybe someone didn't finish their work, I don't know. But yes, it is a bit strange when it's quiet.
So that just moves all by itself, making a noise? Yes. That's quite creepy.
It is a bit creepy when you're on your own. But in here is where they would sleep. This is their cell.
So this is the women's quarters in the prison?
It is the women's room. This was built in the 1850s for all the girls in one room. So you can imagine 6 to 10 girls sharing one space. So, of course, in the evening you're incarcerated, so you'd be locked up, and that's where you'd be sleeping, in a bed with your hair in it, off your own head, in a mattress. And you do have a chamber pot for the loo, so not on the floor, thank goodness.
Stephen, I've got to say that compared to upstairs, this isn't that bad.
No, it is the most modern part of the jail, but it does get a lot worse, I'm afraid.
Do most people feel that it's an uncomfortable, scary environment?
Most people find the Galleries of Justice to be very scary. Now, whether this is because of suggestion, because they know it to be haunted, or because of what a negative atmosphere kind of lingers here from, you know, from what it was in the past, where it was actually used as a prison.
Gosh, it gets dark down here. This already feels grisly.
Yeah, you'll need your light here, I'm afraid. Because this is what we call the dark cells.
And what is this bit?
Now that is one of our 2 pits where you would go if you couldn't pay for that cell upstairs, remember?
People were put in there?
Yeah, if you've got no money, but that's for the real low lives, you see.
I mean, what sort of era is that then?
That's from the 18th century.
And how long would they be in there?
Maybe until you're being transported to Australia. It could be a month, 2 months.
Oh my goodness, that is really grim and grisly in there, isn't it?
Well, you can see why they pay now for something better. Yes. Whilst over here we have our solitary confinement cells, dark cells as they're called.
Oh, goodness gracious, what did you have to do to come in here?
Cause trouble whilst you're in the jail, mainly. In fact, I believe many paranormal groups love to go in here and see how long they can actually stand it. I think the record is about, 10 minutes on their own. Now, this leads to the exercise yard. And although it's outside, it's actually supposed to be the most haunted part of the building.
Well, I'm not surprised, because the first thing I can see is the gallows.
Yes. Public hangings were abolished in the 1860s and it was moved into this yard.
And how many people were hanged here?
One.
Just one?
One man who had slit a young lady's throat was executed in this yard in 1877. So he had his neck broken by William Marwood, very good hangman, and then he was buried beneath this yard.
And how many people are buried under here?
Well, if you look on the wall behind you, you can still see the headstones of some of these condemned men. We're not sure how many are actually buried here because you didn't always get a headstone. So these are the lucky ones. This is the man I just mentioned, Thomas Gray, who was hanged in this very yard. The rest of them were hanged in the street outside.
So this area has a lot of paranormal activity. What have you seen?
Well, me personally, I was actually talking to somebody as I am right now to you, and out of the corner of my eye I saw movement, and I looked up and saw a figure move through that doorway there, across that archway, a figure in what looked like a jailer's outfit. It made me look twice. I actually went over and checked afterwards to see if anyone was there, and there wasn't. And it did make me think, ooh, that's very strange, because I wasn't used to it, you see.
Is that an apparition that's been seen before?
Yes, apparently somebody has seen a lot at the top of the stairs as well, coming down into the yard.
And have you seen it since?
I haven't, but somebody else has. Strange thing about the building is it's constructed on the back of a cliff. So you come in at street level, you go down from the courts, down to the jail, and you go down a number of levels until you reach the sandstone at the bottom, which is, of course, all been carved out here into caves, as you can see.
Stephen took me down to the deepest and oldest part of the jail and handed me back to paranormal investigator Chris Arnold, who wanted to show me the most haunted area in the whole place.
Oh my goodness, look at this. What was down here?
So we've got down here used to be a chapel. It used to be used as a chapel area. A lot of people have heard the sound of what appears to be kind of chanting, maybe monks, kind of religious mantra being chanted over and over again.
So there was an actual chapel down here? What a weird place to have a chapel.
Yeah, the area would have been used as a chapel, so we believe anyway. We've had a few strange experiences down here. The most common thing that we have found, and other groups have found, is stones are thrown at the group that are down here investigating.
Actually thrown?
Yeah, by kind of unseen hands.
And not coming from the roof?
That's obviously our first thought. We check, can bits of, the sandstone kind of fall off. That might explain the odd occurrence, but we've had it happen on request. So we've basically, said if there is anyone with us, can you throw a stone? And a stone's been thrown across the room.
Have there been any other experiences like that, where there are physical feelings of having spirits and ghosts around you?
Yes, the Galleries of Justice is perhaps a little unusual with the amount of actual physical, what we would term kind of poltergeist-type activity. So upstairs on the main cell corridor, people have had doors slam in their face. And one of the things a lot of people report is that they've been walking along and felt like someone has just pushed past them, and there's been absolutely no one there. And it leaves people feeling very, very frightened.
So would you say this is one of the main places for paranormal activity, right down here?
Yes, down here in the caves appears to be, where the most paranormal activity happens.
I'll tell you, whether there are ghosts here or not, I don't like this place.
It's not nice, is it?
It's eerie, and it's just horror stories, real nasty stories in here.
If there are such things as ghosts, it's no surprise that they would be here at the Galleries of Justice. The amount of suffering, negative feeling that has occurred here over almost 700 years, it's no surprise that the place is haunted.
The Galleries of Justice were closed with the prison reform in the late 1800s, shortly after the last person was hanged. They closed literally overnight, so it's not surprising that there are a few lost and tormented souls still floating around. I'll tell you something, I find this place extremely eerie and shocking. This is the Viaduct Tavern in the City of London. Nowadays, it's a very busy, vibey area, but it used to be surrounded by slums and prisons. Think the film Oliver Twist and you'll get the general idea. Now, though, this pub is one of the most haunted in London. The Viaduct is one of the last examples of an old Victorian gin palace left in the City of London, and its garish interior was designed to look like an opera house. Back in the days of Charles Dickens, its clients would have been the poor working class of the capital, as the tavern was in a very disreputable area and right next door to two major prisons. Richard Jones is a world-renowned expert on Dickensian London and knows all about the infamous ghosts of the Viaduct Tavern.
The Viaduct Tavern's incredibly haunted. Most of the hauntings tend to happen down in the cellar, and there's numerous landlords down in the cellar who've had taps on the shoulder. One landlord had a ghost speak to him, say there's just us two down here now. The rooms upstairs are fairly haunted as well. In 1982, the then landlord's daughter was left in charge one Sunday, and she'd closed up after the Sunday morning session. She'd gone upstairs, sat down on the sofa and was reading the paper, when suddenly she heard footsteps come racing up the stairs, and the door opened, the paper was snatched from her hand, dropped to the floor, the door slammed shut, and the footsteps went back down the stairs, and she searched the pub and there was no sign of anybody.
So it's down here, there's a lot of history and a lot of paranormal activity. If you just turn left through that doorway and head straight ahead.
Through here?
Through this one here. And this is where the oppression almost really hits you.
Well, gee, it's cold down here.
We're experiencing the effect of the cooling system for the beer. We're in the pub cellar, but we're in a very historic site because we're sandwiched between the sites of two prisons. Over on this side used to be a debtor's prison called the Giltspur Street Compter, and over on this side, across the road from here, used to be one of the most infamous prisons in London's history, Newgate Prison.
Why was it so infamous?
Well, it's infamous because it's one of the oldest prisons in London, but conditions in there were absolutely horrific. And of course, people were in there for all sorts of felonies, murder, theft. Children were in prison there, and people were actually executed in the square opposite for over 100 years. So it really is not just an historic spot, it's a spot with a very great deal of gruesome history.
After you.
Thank you very much. Too kind.
Gee, it's dark and dingy down here, isn't it?
Have you noticed the atmosphere has changed as well? It's
Completely.
And we've well and truly left the 21st century behind here. I mean, this is what some of the cells would have been like in the prisons. I mean, don't forget, when you went into prison, you were really left to fate. You might have a little bit of money and be able to pay for a bit of luxury, but a lot of people would have been fed. I mean, what some people claim is, for example, the holes here in the ceiling are where people used to walk by upstairs and the debtors would sort of push up against them, crying out for alms or money or even food. Food would be dropped down. And of course, a great pleasure of Londoners was to taunt the prisoners, so it wouldn't just be food that got dropped down on them through this. So if that was the case, it would have been a horrendous place to be, and certainly it's indicative of what several of the cells would have been like, certainly in the debtors' prison. And you can imagine what it would be like here, enclosed, the darkness sort of encroaching around you. And you can imagine just the executions on the other side of the road taking place, and you'd listen to the crowds, the excited babble of the crowds, and they'd start arriving the night before an execution. And of course, not just you, but the whole felons who are waiting to go to their deaths the next morning, they'd be here in their cells, and they'd hear the crowd striking up with songs such as "Oh My, Think I'm Gonna Die," and all sorts of songs like that. And then, of course, just before 8, the bell of St Sepulchre's Church opposite would start tolling, and they'd be brought out onto the scaffold, and the noose would then be placed over their neck, the hood placed over their head, and they'd stand there in the darkness, the crowd all around them. And then at 8 o'clock, that bell would start. It strokes 8, and on the final stroke of 8, the trap was pulled, and you were plunged into eternity. Your last 8 strokes of life.
So that's the history. What about the hauntings?
Well, this is an incredibly haunted spot, and one of my favourite stories concerns the landlord here in the 1980s. And he was tidying up in this room, and the door was open, a light was on, and there he was tidying aptly away. And he turned, and suddenly the light went out, the door slammed shut, and a voice from the corner snarled, "There's just us two down here now."
Oh my goodness, he must have been terrified.
Well, needless to say, within a few moments, there was only it down here. He was back up in the bar having a brandy.
So where's the next one?
It's this one over here, and believe you me, this is where it all kicks off. After you this time.
Thanks.
This is where most paranormal activity is recorded, where people sense things happen to them, and also, to me, it's one of the most oppressive parts of the entire subterranean region down here.
It's certainly very grim looking.
It's horrible, isn't it?
So what's being experienced down here?
Well, this is a place where mediums are often overcome. Mediums will come in here and they'll pick up on things. Some faint, many become nauseous, and all agree there's a feeling of utter hopelessness and helplessness emanating from here. The other reason, of course, is that ghosts often appear where there are sources of water. You often find that where a ghost appears, there'll be an underground spring or an underground brook or underground stream. And oddly enough, just down here, there is just such an item, because this cell used to flood an awful lot, and it was always a bit of a mystery as to why it should happen, until they got a plumber in who made a discovery that down here we have a water source, but it's...
Oh my goodness. Is that a sewer?
Well, it is now, and it's actually a tributary of one of London's most infamous rivers, the River Fleet. So this could have a lot to do with why this is one of the most haunted parts of the pub.
Well, I've certainly learnt a lot about how horrific life was for thieves and murderers in jail before the 19th century. With so much despair, hopelessness and evil history surrounding the galleries of justice and the Viaduct Tavern here in London, it's not surprising that both are renowned for being haunted. See you next time. Bye-bye. And welcome to Great British Ghosts. Later on, I'll be visiting the 900-year-old Ostrich Inn in Berkshire. But first of all, I've come here to the beautiful West Wickham Park, and I'm going to be heading underground to the notorious Hellfire Caves.
West Wickham Park has been in the hands of the Dashwood family for centuries. The main house sits in thousands of acres of landscaped gardens, lakes and follies. But the estate is most famous for the infamous Hellfire Caves that were built under a hillside facing the house by Sir Francis Dashwood back in the 18th century. The caves played host to a secret aristocratic society called the Hellfire Club, made up of some of the most powerful men of the day, who were rumoured to have practised all manner of black magic and satanic worship up there. Not surprisingly, the caves are reported to be haunted. The estate's current owner, Sir Edward Dashwood, rarely gives interviews, but agreed to sit down and talk to me about his infamous ancestor and just what went on in the caves.
So what actually happened in the Hellfire Club? What did they actually do?
Yeah, there's lots of rumours, and particularly in the 19th century, so 100 years after the event, all sorts of Victorians were horrified about what they thought they got up to and wrote lots of stories of blaming them for all sorts of nefarious deeds. They had great fun, there's no doubt about that, so I think there was an element of jocularity about most of our antics, but equally they did take things like religion and astrology very seriously. The room above the one we're sitting in has all the ceiling covered in Masonic symbols and architects' devices. So they were interested in all these elements of life above and below ground, and there's no doubt that I think they probably, I don't know, I mean, they had ladies there, they drank, we have the cellar books, so we know exactly who visited, we know how much they drank, and they drank quite a lot in those days. You couldn't drink water because it was impure, it made you ill. So they were very happy to use that as an excuse to drink lots and lots of wine.
I suppose then, if he was that sort of character, maybe he fueled the rumours and quite enjoyed doing that.
I don't know if he did, but he certainly had fun, but I think ever since, no one's ever wanted to dispel the rumours because, you know, they are quite fun. They give a bit of excitement to the area. We have lots of different sightings of people who think they've had paranormal experiences or they've seen ghosts and these sort of things. And they've all been quite pleasant experiences. They haven't been sort of terrified out of their life. One of the most amusing and recent ones was a... and I probably shouldn't be saying this on camera, but there was a lady about 20 years ago who went down the caves as a visitor, and she was a spinster, and she'd been frigid all her life and had no sexual experiences. And she said she was attacked by the evil spirit of my ancestor when she was down the caves, and came running out and was completely shell-shocked. And it turned her into a raving nymphomaniac, all because of this experience. Now, this was probably just a publicity stunt, I've no idea, but anyway, she got a minister in the area to denounce the caves and denounce the satanic influence of my ancestor at work. And this hit the front page of the local papers. And of course, no doubt, guess what happened? We had thousands and thousands of middle-aged ladies going down trying to rejuvenate their sex lives in the caves.
That's fantastic.
So now I had their history, it was time to see these infamous caves for myself. And one of the guides, Lisa Sheeny, agreed to show me around.
Well, this is the first tunnel that leads off the entrance tunnel, and this is where most of the staff have heard footsteps on the gravel when they've been in the office in the evening, getting ready to close up.
And are they like heavy footsteps?
Yeah, they're like just, you know, they're an adult's footsteps, you know, that you can really hear them very, very clearly, and yet you know the caves are empty, you know there's nobody there. There's certainly an atmosphere in there. There's something in there that it's a presence of some form. I mean, I haven't personally seen anything, but I've certainly had lots of different experiences of odd things happening. Frequently you hear footsteps behind you, and certainly on the gravel you look around, there's nobody there. And you do try and work out some sort of logical reason for it and think, well, it's an echo, but at certain times you just know that's not the case, that there is something down there. So yeah, you do get certain days where you feel someone's watching you. If you're down there working, doing different things, you do sort of look over your shoulder quite frequently.
Have any other ghosts been seen in this bit?
Well, we're coming up to Paul Whitehead's cave here, and again, the little paranormal groups that come here, they have been saying that this area records a cooler temperature than anywhere else in the caves, and yet it's quite near the entrance, so it doesn't really make any logical sense that it would do that. So here we have our Paul Whitehead.
He doesn't look so well, does he?
Oh, yes, bless him. Well, he's been here a long time.
Now, Paul Whitehead was the poet of the Hellfire Club and the chief steward, and his heart was taken out and was actually placed in an urn in a mausoleum on top of the hill. And the story goes, and I have no reason to disbelieve it, that it was removed by some Australian visitors about 100 years ago who broke into the mausoleum and actually stole his heart from the mausoleum. And ever since then, people have believed they have seen him either in the caves or walking around the hill, sort of, you know, holding on to where his heart should be, sort of looking for his heart. Now, believe that as you may, but people like to believe that they've seen Paul Whitehead, or seen his ghost at least.
Do we go further?
Yeah, we'll carry on around here. We're going around the circle now. And this sort of comes round on itself, and we come down to this next stretch.
These are amazing, these
It's incredible, isn't it? It's just an amazing structure, really. So we come into this amazing cavern called the Banqueting Hall, and this is where all the partying really happened. It's just an amazing...
my word.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's
this is absolutely amazing.
It's a 40-foot cavern. I mean, it's just an incredible space to have a party in. And these areas here, where the alcoves are, could be representing sort of the points of the compass, or there's so many different theories. But there was also the legend that they had curtains across here in the days of the Hellfire Club, and this is where the friars had their private devotions.
What does that mean exactly?
It involved the lady visitors.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah.
But I had no idea it was going to be quite so big. So, I mean, this is dug out by hand.
Yes, I know, it's amazing, isn't it? Well, there are two main haunted characters. The first one is of Suki. She was Susan, who worked at the George and Dragon pub down in the West Wickham village. She was very attractive by all accounts, quite a flirt she was known as, and the local boys had all tried to get to know her a bit better, and she'd rebuffed them because she'd really wanted to find someone that was wealthy and take her away, whisk her away to this wonderful lifestyle. But where West Wickham Park is located, it was on the main coach route between London and Oxford. So a lot of wealthy people did come through and stop here en route through. So she got to know one chap and obviously took her eye, and she decided that was the man she was going to go after. The local boys got very, very jealous, and they decided to basically teach her a bit of a lesson, and they sent her a message to say that this chap had actually asked to meet her at the caves, but to come wearing a wedding dress, as they were going to run away together and live happily ever after. So poor Suki got dressed in this wedding dress, went up to the caves, and went through in the dark trying to find her beloved, and in the caves with a group of boys that were playing a trick, basically waiting for her to arrive. She got very frustrated and threw a hand of gravel at them, and they retaliated by throwing handfuls of gravel back, and unfortunately there was a rather large stone amongst them, and it hit her on the head and she died. This is where she was, she met the local lads and met her death. So she fell in this room, and this is where, again, screaming of help has been heard, and, the uncomfort of a feeling of someone that's obviously met a very tragic end. A terribly sad story. Okay, we're about halfway now, so we've got a bit more of a journey to go yet.
And this is obviously getting deeper all the time.
Yeah, because you're going downhill all the way. So we're going, eventually we're 300 feet from the top of the church. So it's quite a nice depth down again. Now we've got here, we're at the triangle, this is where we are, and this is where it splits again, and there's, again, theories of whether men went one way, women went the other. But this is where our Suki was seen recently, down at the bottom of the tunnel here. And it's just an interesting picture because you think, well, there's no light down here, so how on earth did that picture come about? But certainly the lady that was here that took the picture said that she saw the white dress disappearing around the corner, so she's, you know, she's walking in the tunnels. So here we go. So now we're going out towards the final sort of tunnel now that leads through to the River Styx, and then we're going to cross into the underworld of the Inner Temple. So this is the River Styx, and this is the natural water level. This is where, in the days of the Hellfire Club, they would have had to cross with a boat. Obviously now we've got the bridge here to make it a lot easier. You don't get your feet wet, but yeah, in the days of the Hellfire Club, that would have been part of the ritual to come through to the Inner Temple, which is where we're heading next.
So, as legend goes, we cross this, the River Styx, and we go into the underworld.
That's it. Yeah, this is the final part. This is the heart of the caves where, you know, the real sort of crux of the meetings happened. So this is where it all really went on.
Originally, it was a river, so you had to cross the river to get to the famous inner temple, where all these so-called nefarious deeds happened. And there was a boat there, and there used to be probably a villager, I suppose. It was all a bit of a charade even in those days, but there was a villager there who would have taken you across, and you were meant to give him a shilling to take you across, just like Charon. Charon was the boatman in mythological times who took you across to the underworld. So my ancestor was trying to sort of recreate this idea of going down to the inner temple.
So this leads through to the inner sanctum.
This is it. This is where it all happened. This is where the meetings all took place. And although we're showing a party scene here, again, a lot of paranormal groups have said that they've had a feeling there's an altar in here, so it makes you wonder if the rituals and everything went on in this room. One that I love the most, my favourite story, and I can't find out exactly where it all came from, but it was a story that I heard that in 2001, when the water rose, this flooded. And when the water actually drained away and they came in to work out what needed to be repaired, the weird thing was a couple of the mannequins had fallen forward, and where they'd fallen forward, the hands had turned as if to save themselves as they'd fallen forward. That's creepy, isn't it? I love that story. Well, apparently it is. It's, again, all in the documents of the staff that have worked here.
I think it's a state of mind. They want them to be haunted in the first place, whether they are or not. And it has the right sort of atmosphere. You're underground, it has amazing acoustics. A lot went on there, so they're not just natural caves. They were dug by humans. There's lots and lots of history to them, lots of parties, lots of revelry. So all the ingredients are right for them there to be a ghost down there. And I think people like to believe that. And if there is, there is. And if there's not, there's not. But I think it's exactly the right sort of place to find a ghost.
Well, the Hellfire Caves sound like they should be haunted, but add to that the image of a pretty young maiden who was murdered in her wedding dress and stories of a secret society that did satanical rituals, all happening beneath a mausoleum with an urn of a human heart. Well, it's not really surprising that there's a lot of paranormal activity around here. This is the Ostrich Inn in Slough. It's extremely old and it has a pretty grisly history of a landlord who disposed of his wealthier guests in quite a gruesome manner. Sounds like a scene from Sweeney Todd and a place that certainly should be haunted. The Ostrich is one of the oldest inns in England, dating back to 1500. But like much of Greater London, the modern world has grown up around it, and it now finds itself just half a mile from the end of Heathrow Airport's main runway. That certainly makes it a bit noisy, but no less packed with grisly history. Its most infamous landlords back in medieval times were a fellow called Jarman and his wife, who was said to have murdered no less than 60 guests as they slept in their beds.
At that time, there is no bank, so everyone got keep their belongings with them, horses plus all the money. And when there is a traveler who used to come on his own without any families or relatives, there is a special room dedicated for him. And overnight, while he was asleep, he used to visit that room and to take all the belongings of this person And basically, he managed to kill them by a very strange and very, I would say, clever system, which is in a bed who could flip over underneath a trap, and was on the first floor. And the trap was opening to a boiling vase of water, and he boiled 67 people or 60 people like that.
Now, this model depicts Jarman's evil crimes. This is the bedroom that he would put his unsuspecting wealthy guests in. They'd be fast asleep in the bed. In the middle of the night, the bed would tip, the trapdoor would open, and the guest would slide into a vat of boiling water, resulting in a silent, quick, but very nasty death.
But it's not just the grisly goings-on of the Jarmans that haunt this place. The inn was situated on the popular London to Bath Road and found itself a favourite hangout of highwaymen and robbers. The manager, Philippe, agreed to show me some of the other places where ghosts have been seen.
As we go up, let me introduce you to our two main haunted area. Which first one is these stairs, Victorian ones, where is the residence of Mary, who basically is being recognized. She spent her time, most of the time, sitting and kind of checking the people going upstairs and visiting the rooms.
Now, Mary was Jarman's wife.
Yes, that's right.
And she was also hung.
That's right. She was hung with her husband, but funnily, she only stays here. There is some experience with the customers in the ladies' toilet, usually the ladies, with the toilet rolls, with face behind the mirror, and most of them was as well here with a feeling of fresh air all the time here, even when it's very hot. And she's, well, people just say, well, she's checking everyone who is going upstairs, basically.
So they don't see her, it's just
No, just a feeling, a very cold hair sometimes, or some says that there is a face behind them in the toilets, in the mirror.
I've had a couple of paranormal experiences in the ladies' toilets on the first floor. It's happened when I've run in there and not been thinking about it, and all of a sudden I feel like somebody's next to me and my hairs go up and my heart starts beating. I don't actually go in there anymore. I use my bathrooms in my bedroom because I don't. And a couple of customers have said they've also felt the same thing. Some of the girls who have worked here have had the same sort of experiences where taps have gone on and off. Toilet rolls roll past the toilet while they're on it with the door open because they're too scared to close it.
They describe her as Mary as a Victorian lady dressed up quite in the Victorian style, and she more or less spent all her time in the staircase, which are on the same ages than the building, so 15th centuries. Let me show you now the second area, which has been considered as the second most haunted area of the ostrich, which is in that room. It's our function room, dining room. As you can see with the timber and the wood panels and everything, it's apparently from the origin, so 500 years ago. And one part was very spooky, which funnily was last our Halloween parties where we took pictures, very hard, with spirits and everything. When I talked to you earlier about the candles, those are the candles all around the place where we have to check two times if they are blown off, basically because they will restart again.
So you blow the candle out,
yes.
You go away, you come back, it's lit again?
It's likely it will be lit again.
And does that happen often?
Well, it happens me 2 times, but you even don't notice, it's a part of the ghost thing. And with the other stuff, it apparently happens quite often.
We've had an experience upstairs in the function room one night when myself and Jodie were blowing the candles out. I left Jodie on the bar and I went back downstairs, come up, and the candles were all lit again in the room. And I thought she'd relit them, but she said she hadn't.
A few times if the manager's been off and I've been in charge for the day, some odd things do happen, like we either have power cuts or the power trips out and things happen on the bar that I couldn't really deal with. And I'm not sure if that's possibly the ghost showing that they're here or doing something in that way.
What would this room have been used for historically? Would it have been a meeting room?
No, it's been thought that it's the rooms, so basically where the previous landlord and Mr. Jarman used to welcome any other guest, so it was split in different rooms everywhere across the building.
So would one of those rooms have been the infamous room where Jarman did his evil deeds?
Not that one. He's further back in our rooms, which is in the corridor.
It can be quite daunting when you're by yourself, so I look up at night as well. So you do worry if you do see something. If I saw anything, I probably wouldn't come back to work. I'd be really scared.
So this is the famous room when everything happens.
But it's clearly not a bedroom anymore.
No, this is now a storeroom, as no one wants to stay anymore in this room.
But this would have been where the trapdoor and the bed and everything was.
Yeah. I think, in fact, you could have over there. So this is the trap. You could imagine that there is the trap over there with the bed oriented on that way, and with the trap open to the kitchen where Jarman used to tip over all the bodies and after buried in the river.
Sometimes when you're up there, it feels like there could be someone there with you. I do tend to run around if I'm up there working by myself and try to escape as soon as possible.
When I've gone in there thinking that I want to see whatever it was, it doesn't happen. It's only when I go in there not thinking about it, something would happen.
Well, let me tell you, don't ever think of making this into a bedroom for guests.
We will think about that. We will think. If I invite you, why not? We can have a spooky experiences. I think you could have some spooky experience still going on in this place.
Philippe, I have stayed in a lot of haunted bedrooms for this series, but let me tell you, if you make this into a bedroom, I'm not staying in it. I think it's such a horrible story. In fact, let's get out of here.
It's kind of very frightening. Sometimes my staff, when they live in upstairs, they won't go downstairs at any time overnight until there is the daylight, because there is some things that you can feel overnight, some cold areas, or well, the blow or the noise, and yeah, it's quite frightening sometimes.
Well, the ostrich now has a really nice feel to it. It's incredible to think that it hides such an evil history. Out of all the stories we've heard that have produced ghosts, this one really has to be the nastiest. See you next time. Bye-bye. And welcome to Great British Ghosts. Today I've come to the ancient market town of Devizes, a place where local traders have been selling their goods every week since the 12th century. Later on I'm going to be going on a haunted tour of Devizes itself, but first I've come to the Black Swan, an 18th century coaching inn that's reputed to be one of the most haunted places in the West Country. The Black Swan was built in 1732, but its cellars date back to the 1600s, when it was owned by a notorious highwayman, whose ghost is said to still haunt the cellars. Over the years, the Black Swan has been used as a pub, a hotel, and even a court of judgment. And right in front of it, here in the market square, is where some people say that justice was carried out, the Old Town Gallows, in which case the Black Swan certainly has seen its fair share of grisly deaths. Now, it's said that room number 4 of the Black Swan, which is the one on the top left, is reputed to be one of the most haunted bedrooms in the country.
We've had lots of happenings, even that I've experienced. We've had bed shakings, electrical equipment turned on, taps that start running in the night for no reason, toilets flushing, residents that have no history at all of the Black Swan, that have come from other countries, that have experienced being strangled in the night, so much so that they've actually woken up with their own hands round the throat.
The pub's manager, Bonnie, who's had many ghost sightings over the years, agreed to show me around.
So this is room 4?
Yes, this is the famous room 4. Yeah. Here we go.
Well, it looks like a very nice room, a very sort of normal room. It doesn't
Yes.
look like a haunted room.
No, been redecorated. It didn't actually look like this when we moved in. It was a lot more old-fashioned curtains and stuff, but we thought we'd update it anyway.
So what are the stories? Because there are quite a few.
There is quite a few stories in here. Quite a few people have said quite similar things as well. One of the most scariest ones that I find and quite disturbing really is the strangulation on the beds. We had an American girl that came over to stay, didn't know anything about the hotel whatsoever. Come down for breakfast, she looked a little bit upset, a bit drained, and my mum said to her, "Is everything all right?" She was like, "Oh, I had the strangest dream last night that I was getting strangled." Then I woke up in the morning, and I actually had my hands around my neck.
No way.
And she was really, really disturbed by it, but she's not actually the first person to actually have that what's the word?
That dream?
That dream or that event going on, yeah, she's not the first person.
Other people have had that strangling
yes,
feeling?
and felt. Not necessarily the strangling. We've had a few people that have been breathless, found it hard to get the breath, but it all kind of merges into that.
There was a big fire in room 4, and the young girl was actually trapped in room 4, and she couldn't get out, and she was crawling at the wall and screaming, and actually, unfortunately, was burnt alive because she had no escape from that room.
I stayed in here about 1.5 years ago. It's the only time I've ever stayed in this room, and I heard like a scratching noise. And I thought it kind of woke me up. I thought, no, it's just my mind playing up because obviously I've heard about the stories and stuff. But then next minute I heard it again. I was like, oh, what's that? So I stayed up a little bit and it just came worse and worse and worse. Literally like scraping down the walls, so distinctive. At first I thought I was imagining it, that could not be possible because this is when I didn't believe in any of the stuff going on here. So I stayed awake, made myself wake up a bit, and I could hear that, like that.
Gee.
And I was just like, oh gosh. But you know when you put your cover over your head, just go sleep. It's probably nothing. Then I found out about the story of the young lady who was apparently trapped in this room and tried to claw herself away. And then it clicked, oh, okay then, maybe that was that. And it did freak me out a little bit and I won't stay in here again. Let's go.
We were doing a vigil with a young group of girls, and one was getting quite hysterical, and in the end I had to put a close to the vigil immediately because she was so distressed. And what she was actually saying was that there was a person standing by the bed and she could feel the person with her left hand, and the left hand was burning. When we actually put the lights on, her left hand was just dripping with sweat. The room was quite cold, but her left hand was dripping with sweat. We did have a thermometer reading with us, and as we put the probe to the spot where her hand was, it went from 19 degrees right the way up immediately to 28 degrees. As soon as we moved the probe away, the probe just dropped straight back down to 19.
But it's not just the guest rooms where ghosts have been seen. The hotel's cellars are also reported to be haunted.
Oh, just mind your step as you come down.
So when's the last time you came down here?
We came down here probably yesterday to get some ice, but I absolutely hate it. I will not do it unless I really have to. I'll either send Chris down or one of the bar staff, really.
But this bit is the bit that's used a lot. It's this next bit, isn't it?
Yeah, this next bit's awful. I've never actually been in this room. When vigils and everything's gone on, I've actually stood here.
You're actually holding back now, aren't you?
Yeah, I really am.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go on.
Oh, it's a bit of a damp smell.
I'm actually shaking. Really? I am actually shaking, yeah. I'm actually shaking. This is awful.
Why are you shaking? Because
I don't know.
And I just feel that, yeah, it's not the most pleasant place to be because it's dark and it's damp and it's...
Do you not get a bad feeling? I'm actually shaking. This is awful.
It's just old. I mean, you look at it and you think, I would not want to stay in there. And that's in the day. Of a night, I can't say about... Yvonne's, I think, has been in there overnight because she takes people around, but of a night, when I actually go in the cellar on my own, I can't think of one instance I've had to go in there, and I wouldn't volunteer to go in there overnight on my own. It's just really, really strange.
I've stopped vigils now in the cellar because, to be honest with you, it just freaks me out. I'm just so worked up, and for about 2 or 3 days after, I cannot sleep. I've got things going through my head for things that have happened or how I felt, and I will not go in that part anymore.
I do remember one of the biggest screams I've heard is apparently when they heard gallops of a horse run from there, and apparently he went straight through into that wall, and you actually heard him like the last gallop go through, yeah, through to that wall.
And what were these used as historically?
I mean, these, if they've got loads of different, if you can see someone's cut away there, loads of different alleys that actually lead out of devices. They must have been used, I think, for storage, for cells, but yeah, I think there's about, I don't know, 10 tunnels that actually lead all the way out of devices. Yeah, I mean, this is the oldest part of the hotel, back into about the 15th century, I think.
Unless you're there, you can't believe what you hear. You can't believe the sound of these horses' hooves galloping, going through the wall. You can't believe seeing a figure of a man standing in the corner, and you just freeze, and you're thinking to yourself, no, it's because it's dark, it's because it's spooky, it's because we're doing a vigil, but I think deep down, you know you have seen something, you know you've heard something.
Bonnie, you've been down here, a couple of minutes now. Have you stopped shaking? No. Are you serious?
Yeah, honestly, I'm serious. I don't like it in here at all. I'm just doing this for you, Michaela. To be quite honest, I won't be coming back in here at all.
Really?
Yeah, it's making me sweat, my forehead's sweating. It's just not nice at all.
With everything that's gone on and the other person's experiences, there's definitely got to be something that is unexplainable. There's too many things happen. There's too many different individuals' experiences of things happening. I'm not so much a skeptic I was. I really believe there is something, but I can't explain.
To be honest, I didn't believe in ghosts, didn't believe in anything at all until I come here, and it's just things that can't be explained. It's just strange. I don't know if I believe in ghosts or poltergeists or whatever. It's just things that are unexplained.
I need to get you out of here.
I know, yeah.
You've done well.
Oh, thank you.
Or should we just spend the night down here? What do you think?
No, not at all. I couldn't think of anything worse, to be honest. Right, goodbye, because I'll never see you again.
Well, it seems that hundreds of people have seen ghosts here at the Black Swan or have felt a presence or an energy that's unexplained. But what is remarkable is Yvonne, the landlady, has got those people to write down their experiences and draw pictures of what they've seen. There's a picture here of the lady in room 4, and that's a picture that comes up a few times. And this is a picture here of what the highwayman might have looked like and what people think they've seen. And again, it comes up, it's a guy with a beard, with hair down to here, with a very old-fashioned looking face. And from what I've read, the same things come up time and time again.
The rumour is that there's a highwayman that actually haunts the hotel called Ambrose Saintsbury. And yes, we've had residents and we've had people come on vigils that have actually seen him. In fact, like Mike said, we've been here 2.5 years. And after we've done a visual, I actually asked people to write down the feelings about different rooms, what they've seen, if they've seen a spirit or a ghost or a phenomenon, you know, and if they could just draw a rough picture. All the pictures are the same.
Well, it's certainly been an interesting experience here at the Black Swan in Devizes. From phantom highwaymen in the cellar to unexplained changes of temperature to strange stranglings that go on in room 4. It's not surprising that the Black Swan is said to be one of the most haunted places in Britain. Devizes has been a thriving market town since the 12th century, and it's certainly seen its fair share of battles and grisly deaths. So, unsurprisingly, the ghost stories don't stop here at the Black Swan. There are plenty more in the town itself. In fact, Devizes is known as one of the UK's ghost hotspots. The best time to hear those ghost stories is after dark.
John Girvan is a local blacksmith who's spent years researching the haunted history of Devizes. He agreed to take me on a tour of the town's most famous ghosts.
Right, now the most recent ghost we've been seeing has been seen right here, and it appears to be a little old man in a shabby old overcoat, and he walked straight through that brick wall.
And who saw that?
Well, at least 5 different people at different times. Now, I've been doing some research, and I've got a photograph of what this was originally. It was taken from the top of the church tower there. And it was originally the entrance to a stable. And also we've got another photograph from the 1890s, and it shows the stable hand. And what is he wearing? A shabby old overcoat. He's standing with his horse at that entrance. And he has been seen many times going straight through that brick wall. I believe there is a phenomenon here. Certain people say it's unexplainable, but I think it's a phenomenon which is a very strong presence. It's how you perceive it. I do believe there is a phenomenon here. Well, we're now going to St Mary's Church Walk. Very haunted place.
Is it a graveyard?
It is a graveyard. It's a redundant graveyard. Now, it's along here. You can see it's quite narrow. Most Devizes people will not come along here at night.
What, is it that bad?
It's reputed to be very haunted, so you're taking your life in your hands.
Oh, well, thanks for telling me.
It's a bit late now.
What do the ghosts do then? Are they
right? Well, the whole story is it dates to the time of the Civil War, 1643. Cromwell's troops were in town. After the fighting, there are so many bodies to be buried, they used this land, the other side of the wall, as like an unofficial extension to the graveyard. However, they had more bodies than they did space to bury them. Consequently, a lot of them were buried upright. I know, standing room only.
No way! I didn't know you could bury people like that. I've never heard of that before.
Short of space. And under our feet, there are many more bodies buried under the bathing slabs. This was the problem, yeah, they were buried upright, and people really do dislike coming along here at night. All sorts of hands grabbing feet and what have you.
Is that for real?
Reputedly. Now, let me tell you something else. You know what youngsters say about paving slabs?
Yeah.
You should walk always on the slabs and never the cracks, because should there be any spirits below, they can reach up between the cracks and grab you.
No, that is awful. That's really quite spooky.
Well, that's a children's thing, but obviously when you're in these conditions, adults think the same way. Walk carefully, choose your steps. I think ghosts are exciting, if you want to call them ghosts. I believe they're a historical phenomenon which brings the whole history of the town to life. This expression ghost is how you perceive a ghost. I believe they're a historical phenomenon with the facts in history. They're real people from the past. There's an interesting incident in the marketplace. In fact, we've got an illustration of a line cut of a man that was burnt to death which is a terrible thought, isn't it?
And what year was that?
1523.
And why was he burnt to death?
It was a very obscure religion he was involved with, lollardry. He was a lollard.
I've never heard of that.
No, it's very, we're talking early times, but a terrible thing to be burnt to death.
So he must be a troubled soul.
Well, I would have thought so, wouldn't you?
Has he ever been seen as a ghost?
Well, the story goes that you can smell the burning. That's providing you're not too near the fish and chip shop round the corner. You shouldn't ask questions like that. If you look into the history of this phenomenon, some people get afraid of the dark. You shouldn't be afraid. The historical facts are there, and you can prove all these stories and bring them together. But I believe there is a phenomenon which can be researched and made positive. Right, well, this is what we've come to see. This is the lockup.
What, in there?
Yes, there we are, look, the old town lockup.
So this is obviously some kind of jail?
Yes, yeah.
Where does this date back to?
Well, originally it dates back to the 1500s.
Oh.
There we go.
Gee, this really doesn't... Oh, yes, please.
Right, down we go.
You know, I'm not scared or anything, but it is a bit spooky.
Right. Right, open the door. Right, you steady.
Obviously, it's not used these days, is it?
No.
Gee. Oh, no, stop it. That terrified me.
Sorry about that. Our jailer would have been a turnkey. He's our resident.
And so do you have ghosts and spirits down here?
Yes. Now, I want to show you the cell first. Look, this is another... This isn't the true cell. This is the outer cell. There's a great big keyhole here, so...
He's a bit spooky
have a look
himself,
in here. Right, here's our...
Here's
our
word.
very vagrant vagabond there. So pretty dismal.
That is horrible, isn't it?
He's got his straw to sleep on. His shoes have been taken away. I think he'd been throwing them through a shop window. I think that's the story about it. So he's our unfortunate person.
But is there a haunted spirit in here?
Yes, I'm going to show you the back wall. It's very sensitive. Let's have a look at it. It's this back wall here. This very suspicious back wall, very similar to the Black Swan. It's been blocked up.
Yeah.
And here there is a presence, very sensitive. With even figures been seen reputedly going through this wall at this point. So it's certainly got a lot of mystery.
Why would this have been bricked up? Where would it have gone to?
Well, this is one of the mysteries because the building is a lot earlier than it is, if we see it today, it dates back to the 1600s, in fact 1655. The building above has been a rebuild. Thomas Baldwin of Bath came along and reclamped the building with stone. But the cellar obviously would have been dating back to its earlier period. So who knows what's behind there?
John, there's been a lot of stories that we've been talking about ghosts and paranormal.
Oh, I know, yeah.
Why do you think there is so much of it in Devizes?
Well, it's a very early town. In fact, the word Devizes comes from the Latin divisas, castrum ad divisas, castle at the division. So it's very 12th century the town is. So we've got a very early heritage. Okay, so that's it. You've seen the cell.
Well, it's been a fascinating evening, but I don't think we want to spend too long down here, really.
Not very pleasant at all, is it?
Let's hope someone hasn't locked that door.
No, let's go very steady, all right?
Well, I've been to Devizes many times before, but now I've seen it in a completely new ghostly light. Next time I come here, I'll be looking out for those soldiers who grab your ankles in the graveyards and that strange man in a shabby coat that disappears through walls. But for now, I'm off to bed. Guess where I'm staying? Room 4. Wish me luck. See you next time. Bye-bye. and welcome to Great British Ghosts. Today I'm in London, which certainly has more than its fair share of hauntings. Later on, I'll be going on a historic ghost walk. But first, I've come here to the Grenadier pub in Knightsbridge, which has an intriguing story about a soldier. The Grenadier is a tiny pub tucked away in the cobbled streets of Belgravia, which has a colourful history. It was once used as the officers' mess of a nearby army barracks and is said to be haunted by the ghost of a young officer who met a sticky end in its cellars. London historian Richard Jones agreed to show me around.
So this is one of London's most hidden, historic and haunted pubs. It started life as an officer's mess, and that's why we have all this military memorabilia around the walls, hats, guns, swords, pictures of soldiers, etc. And in the days when it was an officer's mess, the story goes that a young soldier was caught cheating at cards, and this just wasn't the done thing, and his mates were so furious they subjected him to a flogging and a beating, and they accidentally killed him. Now, nobody knows exactly when this happened, if it did happen, but tradition maintains it was in September. So September's the month when a lot of the paranormal activity tends to happen here. And just over at the bar here, there was a very bizarre happening in the 1970s when a police detective was standing at the bar and he sensed someone standing next to him and looked around and he could see cigarette smoke, but there was nobody next to him, no cigarette at all. So he reached out in the direction of the smoke and suddenly screamed out and pulled his fingers back, having burnt his fingers on an apparently invisible cigarette.
So how do you explain that paranormally?
We can't. It's just one of the bizarre things that happens in this haunted pub. And something even more bizarre happened here in the 1980s. A TV crew came to film here one night, and the brewery sent a photographer along to get some souvenir snaps. And the photographer photographed this corner here. And in that window, when he looked at his photograph later on, he could see what appeared to be a sort of a very hazy face. And he got a bit of a ribbing from everyone who saw it, saying, "Oh, it's obviously you can just see the shape of the trees there." So he blew the picture up, fully expecting the image to sort of split apart and divide as he blew it up. But instead, it got clearer and clearer. And they actually saw that it was the face of a young man with a handlebar moustache, face pressed up against the window.
And is it thought that that's the soldier that was killed?
Some suggest it was the soldier that was killed. Others aren't too sure, because obviously so many people have passed through this pub, and any one of those could be the ghost that comes back to haunt it.
How do you explain the face in the window?
Well, the face in the window is an interesting one because it's something that's actually caught on film. The sad thing is I can't trace this photograph because I would love to see the photograph because then obviously I'd be able to look at it and draw a conclusion. But often you do get ghosts all picked up on film. People will take photographs of a window, they might take a photograph of a corner, and something that's not there at the time, when they actually come to look at the photograph, they'll see something there that they hadn't seen at the time. So I think it's to do with the fact that everyone was concentrating on other aspects of the pub, and looking at the window wasn't really high on their agenda, and it's only when he'd taken the photograph, gone away, and then looked at the photograph closely that he actually saw the face. You get a lot of hauntings up here in the bar itself, so a lot of customers' experiences, but of course there's places then the staff can go, and that's a very haunted place as well, and that's the cellar just over here.
The cellar's always haunted, isn't it?
It's always a haunted cellar, but this one's particularly haunted.
It is amazing, Richard, isn't it, just how many pub cellars are haunted?
Oh, very much so. It's, there's always something in the cellar in a pub, or someone. There are lots of stories about things happening to people. People in the cellar having sort of a closed tug. They've felt people shoving them in the back. Things get moved around. In fact, an old landlord who was here was so wary of the ghosts that he actually had a crucifix that he placed in the cellar, and that was there for the entire period of his tenure.
It's actually not too bad, this cellar, is it?
It's not too bad. It's very low.
Yes, it is low, but it's not one of those really dark, horrible places.
Not oppressive. It's not oppressive, but it's a fantastic little location because lots of sort of strange things happen down here. And folklore maintains that there's actually a tunnel here that goes from the Grenadier and goes to Apsley House, number 1 London, which was the home or the house of the Duke of Wellington, and he could use the tunnel supposedly to get back and forth in privacy without having to go through the London mob or having to tread in all the filth that scattered the streets in his day.
So the Duke of Wellington could just walk through the tunnel and come here for his pint of beer?
folklore maintains, yeah, he could just come out, have a drink, sit at the bar, and then make his way back, no matter how sozzled, back
That's
to his
so cool. And what ghosts have been seen down here, or paranormal things?
Down here, it's not so much ghosts are sighted as ghosts are experienced. Strange smells is a popular one. People get a sort of a nauseous smell in the air. People working away down here have been pushed. People have had their clothing tugged. People have felt someone standing behind them and been certain there's someone behind them, but when they look round, there's nobody there. So it's a place more where you experience or sense things than see things.
Richard, why do you think it is that cellars are often haunted? Is it because they're a safe place for ghosts and spirits to stay?
I think it's a lot to do with the fact that the atmosphere of the cellar, it's conducive to a good haunting. And also, if you actually look at the walls here as well, these thick walls, and who's to say what memories are trapped within these walls? And if we believe in the stone tape theory, then those memories sometimes come out of the walls, people pick up on them, and they'll see scenes played out before them that were laid down many years or even centuries ago. There's a theory that ghosts are sort of emotions. It's called the stone tape theory, that ghosts can be emotions that are left behind. And of course, we tend to associate ghosts with fearsome, horrible acts, murders and beatings to death. But of course, a lot of ghosts are happy ghosts. They don't necessarily have to be miserable. And if you've actually enjoyed yourself somewhere and you've then gone off to the trauma of war or something, then perhaps your thoughts would turn back to your last night. Maybe they'd spent a last night here. Maybe they'd had their last happy time here. And it's that brings them back time and again.
While we were filming in the cellar, a strange thing happened. A spare light bulb fell off the shelf and onto one of the tabletops.
I've been working here 3 years. I've never experienced anything supernatural or anything to do with ghosts until today. As soon as you guys came down, I've had this little item stored up in this little cubby hole there, so I can, it was a dead one, ceased to function. And I was keeping it for measurement purposes when I would buy some new ones. 3 minutes after you lot went upstairs, it drops on the floor. That one surprised me. It's been there at least 3 weeks and it's never moved.
Although the current landlord is a self-confessed skeptic when it comes to ghosts, he did have a weird experience.
Well, I've only been here a short while and I've had one strange experience, and that was in the cellar. I was downstairs counting the stock, and while I was down there, I felt my shirt being tugged. So I don't really believe in ghosts anyway. I turned round and there was nobody there, and I just ignored it. I thought it might have been a bit of static or something, or my shirt got caught on something. Anyway, it happened again, and I turned round and I actually saw my shirt moving like this. And that was really weird, but anyway, I thought it might have been somebody playing a joke or a trick or something like that, and I called for Pete, who's the old cellar boy, and he came down the stairs and said, "What?" So I just said, "Somebody's pulling my shirt," and he just laughed and said, "It's probably the ghost," and walked away. And that's my only experience here at the moment, but I've only been here for a few months, so who knows.
As far as ghost stories go and hauntings go, pubs are great places to tell stories. People sit round and they swap stories. And so you've got landlords who come here, they'll have a ghostly experience, or a customer will have a ghostly experience, and then they'll pass it on to someone else. And of course, we've got the oral tradition is kept so alive and so vibrant in the haunted pubs of London.
The Grenadier pub is a real hidden gem in the streets of London, full of atmosphere and history. And quite frankly, it would be a travesty if it wasn't haunted. With such a rich history, the City of London is a fantastic place for ghosts and ghost stories. And one of the best ways to hear about them is to go on a historic ghost walk.
Thousands of tourists go on ghost tours around London every month. And judging from the reviews he's had, one of the most popular is led by London historian Richard Jones. He's been doing it for over 20 years and has written several best-selling books on the subject. So when it comes to London hauntings, he's definitely the man to follow.
So this is Smithfield Meat Market, and this is Europe's largest market. It dates back to 1868, and it still is a working market. It starts work at midnight, finishes 8 in the morning, and it's snap bang in the middle of one of the places, historically speaking, one of the most gruesome parts of London. And around here is where it all happened. There are places that we don't really know why they're haunted, but we're now coming to a place we most certainly know why this is haunted, because for many centuries this was one of London's main execution grounds. And one of the most gruesome forms of execution in the Middle Ages was that of being hanged, drawn and quartered. And it was here at Smithfield that this man here, Sir William Wallace, Braveheart, was brought on a 23rd of August 1305, and here he was hanged just for a few moments, cut down and then castrated, and then the skill of the executioner was to actually cut you open and to keep you alive for as long as possible, so they could then take out your innards and burn the innards before your very eyes.
That
and then you'd be
gory
cut into,
and miserable.
Horrible, horrible, and then cut into quarters, and quarters pinned up above the various gates, and his head was actually pinned up or posted up above London Bridge, on the south side of the bridge, so that people coming towards London would see William Wallace's head there and be reminded of the punishment awaiting all those guilty of treason. So it's really no wonder, with all the executions going on around here, this is a most really haunted spot. And people who work here till the early hours of the morning said from time to time they hear anguished and agonised screams carried on the breezes, and they smell, sometimes because people were burnt alive here, so they smell a smell not unlike the smell of burning flesh. This is the Hospital of St Bartholomew, and it's the oldest hospital in London still standing on its original site. It's occupied this site since the year 1123. But from a paranormal perspective, it's a haunted hospital, because within the labyrinth of these buildings, there's a lift, an elevator, which the staff have poetically dubbed the coffin lift. And it's so called because it's a wooden lift, it's tiny, but also it's got this unnerving habit from time to time. If people go into it in the early hours in the morning, it doesn't matter which floor they press for, the coffin lift takes them straight down to the basement, lights go out, and it won't move. So after a few moments of madly pushing the buttons, they'll get fed up, pull the gates open, start to walk up. Lo and behold, the lift's waiting for them on the ground floor with its gates open, its lights on. So now they think enough's enough, and they'll start to walk up to the level they require. As they do so, very slowly, the lift begins to follow them from level to level to level. And to give you some idea of how unnerving it is, it's an old-fashioned elevator shaft where the stairwell goes around the open shaft. So as you're walking up, you can hear it and see it creaking just a few feet beneath you. You stop, it stops, continue your journey, the coffin lift creaks into life and follows you step by step by step.
That is very weird.
It's a creepy tale. It's one of the best-known stories of the hospital. The point about London is that it's been in existence for 2,000 years, so you've had demolition, rebuilding, and the consequence is that the burial grounds have often been utilised into building spaces, so plague pits will often be built on. And we have what could be tombstones. No one's actually certain what these are. They could be tombstones.
Certainly look like tombstones.
But we're here in the most bizarre places. But as we come down the passageway, there's something quite bizarre about this passage, because it's a passage that officially has a name, but in reality it doesn't. You can actually see, if you look on the wall here, where the name should be. But every time they put the name sign up, it gets stolen. Another one goes up, it gets stolen. In the end, they just gave up altogether.
What's it called then?
Well, I can't see the attraction. Why anybody wants to steal a name that says Back Passage is beyond me, but clearly they do. Personally, I blame the medical students from St Bart's Hospital. But here we have the pub called the Rising Sun. And this pub is synonymous, or was synonymous, with the resurrectionists, the sack-em-up men, the body snatchers. And they're the people who go out into the early hours of the morning and dig up the bodies of the newly dead, which could then be sold to doctors at St Bartholomew's Hospital and then used for medical experimentation. Now, whether the body snatchers have got anything to do with the hauntings here, I don't know, but strange things happen here. Barmaids who live on the premises, they've long grown used to the covers being tugged off them in the dead of night by an unseen hand. Others have the worst experience. They're lying in bed at night when the bedroom door will creak open, and they'll sense that someone or something has entered the room. They can't see anything or anybody, and it gets worse. Whoever it is, sits down on the bed, and they can feel the pressure of where it's sitting. They can even see a depression where it's sitting, just can't see anything or anybody. And then in 1990, its then landlady was enjoying a shower one summer's afternoon, and she thought she heard the bathroom door open and then close, and she called out, no response. And then, you know when you get that feeling there's somebody standing behind you? Well, she got it, and she froze in horror as the shower curtain pulled slowly aside, and the very next moment, an ice-cold hand ran down her back, and she turned round, and there was nobody there. Now,
Now we come to this building here on the other side of the road, and this is the oldest parish church in London. It's the Priory Church of St Bartholomew the Great, and it dates back to the year 1123. It was founded by a monk named Rahia, and Rahia now lies buried inside the church. And in the 1860s, they decided to open up his tomb and see how he was getting on. And they discovered his body was perfectly preserved, even down to his garments being intact, right down to 2 leather sandals on his feet. So they closed up the tomb and away they went. And a few days later, one of the officers of the church fell sick, and on his sickbed confessed that when the tomb was opened, he had stolen one of Rahia's sandals, gave it back, he got better, but it never went back inside the tomb. And from that day on, Rahia has haunted the church. And it's mostly late at night he appears, this hooded figure who comes out of the gloom, he brushes past anyone who stands around, and as you turn around to acknowledge him, he shimmers and melts away before your eyes.
And is he looking for his sandal then?
Supposedly he's hopping mad looking for his sandal.
Hopping mad. Did you just make that up, or is that a regular one?
Spare of the moment, that came to me. I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Butterworth. There's an interesting ceremony around this tomb that goes back several hundred years. But if you had arrived here 100 years ago, around this tomb here, on Good Friday, you'd have found a group of poor widows, and silver sixpences would be dotted all the way across the tomb. And the idea was that he left a bequest for poor widows every Good Friday to come here and remember him. And so they would take a silver sixpence, and then they would turn and they would take a hot cross bun each and make their way off. And that ceremony was a really popular ceremony. Nowadays, there's not that many poor widows in this parish, so nowadays they actually do use the choir boys or the church officers, and it's gone up to 20 pence and a hot cross bun and a glass of sherry for those who attend.
And why did he do that?
Nobody knows for certain the origins of the custom. Some say that it's because he died a bachelor, and he was so terrified nobody would remember him that he left this bequest for the poor widows of the parish to actually remember him. So here we are in Cock Lane, and it's in Cock Lane in the 18th century that what many people consider to be London's most famous ghost story ever occurred. In fact, in Cock Lane in the 18th century, there lived a man named William Parsons, and one day he took in a lodger, William Kent, and his mistress, Mistress Fanny. And Mistress Fanny had been the sister of William Kent's wife, but they moved into the Parsons household. And then a few weeks later, William Kent went away on business, and Mistress Fanny was so afraid to spend the night alone, she took into bed with her William Parsons' 11-year-old daughter Elizabeth. And that's when it started, because she was woken in the dead of night by these noises coming from down the wainscoting. And she lay there terrified, and she heard this scratch, 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 and this bang, bang, bang. And it absolutely terrified her. And so the consequence was that when William Kent came back from the business trip, his mistress was on the verge of a breakdown. So they moved out, and a few weeks later, Mistress Fanny died and was buried in the crypt of St. John's. And that's when the noises started again. So Parsons began charging people to go into the house and listen. And all these scratching noises seemed to centre on his 11-year-old daughter Elizabeth. So she became something of a local star or local celebrity. But then Dr. Johnson stepped in and exposed the whole thing as a hoax. He got a midwife to reach up the girls' dresses, and she found 2 rough wooden boards strapped onto the girls' legs. And it had just been a complete hoax. For the knocking noises, she was knocking her knees together. Scratching noises, she was scratching her legs together. And Parsons ended up 2 years hard labour for fraud. But in fact, the ghost was then assigned to the pages of London history under the absolutely wonderful name of Scratching Fanny of Cock Lane.
That is a fantastic story, but I must say I'm recovering from a heart attack myself.
There you have it. There's a hospital over here. Well, we've arrived on London Wall, and this really shows what London's about. We've got the modern buildings here, and almost lost amongst them, you've got this Barbican Tower from the old Roman wall. It goes back to AD 200, so we've gone back 2,000 years into London's history.
So this must be a place where there are ghosts.
Well, this has what is perhaps one of the oddest ghosts in London. There was a letter sent into one of the city newspapers in 1912 when a reader wrote in to say he was passing a segment of the old Roman wall late one December night when all of a sudden a hand reached out of the wall and slapped him across the face. And he spun round, and as he did so, he saw a tall, dark figure striding towards the wall. And as he watched in amazement, it just melted into the stonework. And that was it. He was out of there that night. But the next day he came back, determined to find a natural explanation for his experience, but he couldn't. And he came to the conclusion he'd been assaulted by a ghost.
And has that ever happened since?
No, the only thing that's ever happened is on the walks I do, several people have taken photographs of the segment of the wall, and they've actually had a face on the wall has appeared. But this really is a historic part, because just over here is the Church of St. Giles Cripplegate. And this was the scene of a very bizarre 19th century tale when a lady who lived in the parish died, and her husband went to the church and he asked could she be buried in the crypt in her wedding dress with the wedding ring upon her finger. And it was a perfectly reasonable request, so the church allowed it, and she was laid to rest in the crypt. But the church warden had noticed the wedding ring, and that night at midnight he and his wife came back to the church and they prized open the tomb and they tried to take the ring from her finger, and it just wouldn't move. So they took out a pocket knife and began to slice into the flesh, and then made the discovery she wasn't dead. She was suffering from narcolepsy. So she came back to life. They ran away. She staggered out to the coffin and she picked up their discarded lantern, and holding it before her, she came walking home through the streets. And then she knocked on her door and she knocked, and eventually the maidservant heard, lit a candle, came downstairs. She opened the door and screamed out at the top of her voice, seeing her mistress there in the doorway. And she went racing to the master, saying to him, "Wake up, wake up!" And he said, "What is it?" She said, "You'll never guess who's downstairs. Your wife's come back from beyond the grave to take us with her." And he went down, he found her perfectly alive. He gave her a hot drink, put her to bed, and she went on to live for another 35 years. And when she finally died, she was buried back in the crypt and given the nickname the Cripplegate Ghost.
That's like a living ghost,
Well,
isn't it?
exactly much.
Oh, my heart is definitely weaker after this tour. Well, I lived in London for about 15 years of my life and I didn't know most of that history. I must say some of it is quite shocking and some more light-hearted. But going for a walk with Richard is certainly a very entertaining way to hear about both the history and the ghosts. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.